let us do drive. Like a lazy cat, you stretched your arms above your head and yawned, blinking your eyes sleepily.
What's that about cats?
The day was warm and pleasant, and you were lounging on the couch in the living room, finding it difficult to do much in that moment. Your moms and Liz had gone out shopping, looking for some new items for your sister to take back and decorate her college dorm with. They had asked if you wanted to go with them, but you declined, for today was about relaxation. Cove had dropped by to spend some time with you, content to join in with doing nothing. The two of you had been chatting idly as you lazed around, talking about other things as you had planned for the summer. You were sitting next to him. You sat on one couch while he sat on your own. He sat on one couch while you were fully stretched on the other. You were stretched out across him as he sat on the couch. You were cuddling. Oh, we're cuddling. He had an arm loosely slung around your shoulder, and his head dipped down against you, while you were nestled against his side, enjoying the comfort of his company. Aww. I love him so much. You had almost dozed off completely when suddenly a buzz rang out, disturbing the silence. Your phone was on its charger in the kitchen, so it couldn't have been that. Cove pulled his own phone out from his back pocket and checked the screen. His movement had jostled you, so you tried to readjust your position to get it right again.
Oh.
It's my mom! After leaning forward and settling the phone down on the coffee table in front of him, Cove hit the speaker button. Hey, what's up? Yui's here too.
Hi.
Yes! It's her! The MILF is back! Oh, she looks so precious! Can we get a full body of older Kyra, please? I love her! Hi, Cove. Hi, Yui. You made a small noise in response. Hi, Kyra! Hey, Mom 3. You're interrupting our very important do-nothing time, you know. I hope you know you're interrupting our cuddle time. Hi, hey, Mom 3. You knew your forwardness was making Cove regret putting it on speaker, but you were alright with that. Cove, baby, I wanted to ask if you have a plan for all your junk. Cove made a small, outraged grumble, giving you a sidelong glance. That's not junk, it's important. Though you couldn't see it, you couldn't tell by the sound of her voice that Kyra was smiling.
Aha.
But is that a yes or a no about the plan? He looked over at you, his mouth pulled into a tight smile. I'm still thinking about it, Yui? I'm gonna take the phone off speaker so me and Mom can go over this. It'll be quick. Cove carefully moved you off him and took the phone from the table before pushing himself to his feet. He hit the speaker button again to turn it off and continued the conversation with his mom as he headed towards the door. The lock clicked behind him as he exited the house, and he sank back onto the cushions, idly trying to decide what to do next. After electing to grab your own phone from its charger, you resumed your position on the couch, tapping away at the screen. It was an effective enough way to kill the time, and you had managed to do various little things when the door opened again and Cove returned. He gave you a smile as he approached, so you figured the conversation couldn't have gone too bad. You watched as Cove strolled over to where you were still sitting. He crossed his arms against the top corner of the couch, resting on them while bending forward to lightly kiss the top of your head. I'm sorry, every time like Cove does something precious, like kiss me or whatever, I'm just gonna like fucking freak out, because I love him. He's best boy.
Hey.
I'm back. You gazed up at him fondly, you put a hand over his, you stretched up to hold his face, you tilted your head to give him a small kiss. Kiss! He met you with a quick peck before pulling back quickly, a flushed up pink staining his cheeks. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, just... He turned his head suddenly, running a hand through his hair and letting out an exasperated breath. He seemed nervous, but he couldn't imagine why.
Fine.
Nothing, not anything to worry about. You raised an eyebrow at his tone, moving your head to the side to try and meet his eye. That doesn't explain what's going on. He shrugged and gave you a tight smile, trying to play whatever it actually was off as unimportant. There's nothing going on, just stuff I can deal with later, some other time. He was transparently avoiding the truth, and you stared back at him, seriously, an indication that you weren't going to ignore what he was doing. Eventually he broke beneath your stare, hanging his head in his hands before groaning. I need to make another trip to my mom's place. There's some stuff out there that I'm gonna use, so I'll have to go pick it up. It wouldn't make sense to ship it, and I couldn't bring the stuff back with me last time since I flew. Oh. Suddenly you understood what the phone conversation had been about. Cove was about to drive to his mom's house in Nevada. When will he go? Mom thinks it'll be best to do it now while I'm still kind of free, but... Cove pouted, giving you an unhappy look, and you could see that the prospect was already taking a toll on him. I don't want to. I was just there, and for even longer than usual. Why do I have to leave right now, when it's our last summer like this? He laughed, not knowing why he was being so difficult about it. He thought it was cute, he wanted to say, you can hack it. I don't want you to go either. You shook your head affectionately. I don't want you to go either. Isn't there another way to get your stuff? Could you drop it off instead? I don't think so. Looking up again, you met his bright I almost read his eyes as aquarium and not aquamarine. I can't fucking read, my god. Looking up again, you met his bright aquamarine eyes, finding a sad smile tugging on his lips.
Oh.
Suddenly his eyebrows jumped and his eyes lit up like a lamp. You could come with me. What? You should come with me. I mean, I get that the two of us live next door to each other and my mom lives in another state. My trips there are usually to spend time with her, just the two of us. But this time it won't be like that. All I'm gonna do is drive over, stay over for a night, and then pack up the car in the morning and then turn around again. Most of the time we'll be spent in the car, so it'll be good to have another person there. Plus, you'd have the chance to see my mom again in her place. Maybe we could even find something cool to break at on the way. You couldn't stop yourself from laughing at his enthusiasm. He blushed a little, reining himself in.
Please?
I just feel like it could be fun. Please, could you think about it? I want to go. Road trip sounds fun. I'll have to let my moms know, but as long as we've got nothing else important on the days we pick, then there's no reason I wouldn't be able to go. You grinned from ear to ear, thrilled by the news. He put both his hands on your cheeks, kissing your face all over, having to bend down so far to do so, but he didn't mind a bit. I love him so much. This is so much better than Blooming Panic. I mean, not them dissing Blooming Panic, but with like Blooming Panic, yeah, it's cute. But this, you can at least like get like the aftermath of like actually like dating someone. Like, yeah, with Blooming Panic you get like a sneak peek or two, but this is like full-flown like relationship. My god, I love it. Also, please play Blooming Panic if you haven't. It's a free dating sim game. It's a lot of fun.
I'm so glad.
This is so great. I'll call my mom back and let her know right now. You spent some time together going over your schedules and making plans for when you could take the trip. You needed to fit it in around both your work schedules, which took a bit of doing, but came together in the end. Luckily, it was only a 2-day trip, so finding a couple free days in a row wasn't impossible. It wasn't long before the days were finally set, and all the plans were made. You're excited for the trip, you're content with the plans, you're nervous, you're feeling unsure about everything. Excited! A short trip sounded like the perfect way to spend some time. You could listen to music, eat snacks, and enjoy the open road. No matter what you thought about things, the morning when you were due to leave arrived. It was cooler than usual, the sun barely peeking over the tops of the houses. You stood outside your house, on the footpath near the road, waiting for Cove. You were feeling refreshed after a good night's sleep and an early wake-up. With your travel bag clutched in one hand, you watched as Cove finished packing up his car. He had organized all sorts of things, water bottles, snacks, and who knows what else. Cove insisted that he had everything under control and didn't need help. At least you could rest easy knowing that it was all taken care of. As you waited, you glanced over Cove's car. You knew it well. It used to belong to Mr. Holden, and when Cove had learned to drive, it passed to him. His dad had taken the opportunity to get a newer one. It was pretty old at this point, but had served both of them so far. You had just hoped it had enough life left to survive a trip as long as the one you're embarking on. The slam of a door closing made you jump. You snapped back to focus and saw Cove was walking towards you. He dusted his hands off on his pants and tilted his head towards the car. That's it, ready to go? Yeah, I'm ready. He smiled and stepped aside, giving you space to situate your own bag while you wanted it. Once everything was safely inside, he glanced back at you.
Alright.
We should get started. It's gonna be a ways to go. Woo! You gave him a high five. You hugged him. You smiled back with a nod. Woo! Let's get the show on the road. He chuckled at your enthusiasm, shaking his head slightly. The two of you climbed into the car and buckled up. Cove in the driver's seat and you sitting shotgun. His eyes moved to you.
Thank you.
For coming with me. Of course, it's no problem. After checking the mirrors and starting the engine, you pulled out of the driveway and the trip began. With a small sigh, you got cozy in your seat and watched the familiar houses in your neighborhood pass by. Cove reached over to turn on the radio. A crackle of static mixed with the old snippets of a song filled the car as he flipped through the stations. Mr. Holden's car was in good condition, but it was, well, older. There's no way to plug in a phone to play music, so the radio had to do. Eventually, he settled on a classic rock station before sitting back and resting both hands on the wheel. Is this okay? Yes, you know what I like. Yeah, it works. You nodded. Can I change it? I'd rather have it off. Yeah, it works. You smiled, happy with the answer. Time flew by, and with the scenery outside your window became more and more unfamiliar. Neither of you spoke for a good long while, but the quiet was comfortable. You had become all too used to each other's company over the years. Eventually, Cove broke the silence, clearing his throat softly before he spoke. It's been too long since you and I have spent time with my mom. I know she still comes to the neighborhood sometimes, but it's not even once a year. I'm always going to hers. I'm happy the two of us are doing this. Yeah, me too. The sun climbed higher into the sky, forcing you to adjust the visor overhead to keep it out of your eyes. Hey, do you mind reaching back for me? Cove gave you a sidelong glance as he drove. indicating with a nod of his head and a tiny smile. I want some chips, the salt and vinegar ones. Oh, same! I love salt and vinegar chips. That's a great flavor. I don't know how you can eat that. You didn't have a comment on this selection. That's a great flavor.
Right?
Eat whatever you want to. I brought a bunch of everything. Stretching out the seatbelt to give yourself space, you twist it in your spot and reach into the bag holding the snacks. It took a bit of effort to sort through the collection of goodies stuffed inside, but eventually the bag of chips crinkled beneath your fingers as you pulled them out and sat back in your seat. Here. Thanks. Do you mind opening it? His eyes lit up at the prospect of the snacks as you shook your head in amusement, popping to the top of the bag. You poured a few chips into his hand. You held the bag open out for him. You want me to feed them to you? His eyes widened with the hint of a blush creeping over his cheeks, but he steadfastly continued to face the road. No, that's okay. Can you just pour a few into my hand? Yeah, sure. Thanks. Cove held on to the outstretched hand, and you did your best to have the chips fall into his palm, but some did end up on the floor. After that, you rolled at the top of the bag and stowed the chips away safely in the back again. When you turned to the front, it was to find Cove crushing the fistful of chips in his mouth, crunching loudly. He wiped his hand on his pants absentmindedly before gripping the wheel and spilling crumbs all over the place. You're like a little kid, you laughed at that. How can you eat that much at once? I'm impressed. You had no reaction to that. You're like a little kid. He snorted and pulled a hand from the wheel once more to flick the salty residue from his fingers at you. With a gasp, you raised an arm to defend yourself. You shook your head at the mess of crumbs that fell from his mouth as he chuckled. See what I mean? The hours drifted by much the same way as that, with the two of you snacking and chatting as the day stretched on. It was fairly calm and quiet, traveling along the open road, and you found little in the way of interruptions. At one point, you passed a "Welcome to Nevada" sign, and Cove gave a tiny cheer. He was in disbelief that the two of you were seriously all the way in another state like this. Eventually, you had to stop for gas and made a detour at a small diner to grab a proper meal that didn't consist of chips and candy. After refueling both the car and your stomachs, the drive was back on, just as the sun began dipping beneath the horizon and bathing the sky in a wash of orange light. Cove informed you that there wasn't too much longer left to go. You were almost there. When night eventually fell in a blanket of darkness, the drive finally came to an end. Cove pulled back into the parking lot of Kyra's apartment building, the glow of the car lights disappearing as he turned off the engine and let out a heavy sigh. We made it. We're here! The two of you exchanged tired smiles, having successfully and safely completed one half of the trip. You were relieved to actually have arrived and eager to get out of the car and stretch your legs. You took the stairs up to the building together. After a knock, you were abruptly met by a flash of green hair as Kyra opened the door and immediately took her son in her arms. Oh, she's so pretty! Listen, I know I'm dating Cove, but why the fuck is his entire family hot? I mean, look at her. She's so gorgeous. Actual supermodel. I love her. There he is, my gigantic baby boy. She squeezed him for a moment, then pulled back so she could examine his face. Are you even taller than the last time I saw you? Cove gave her a fond look as she patted the top of his shoulders lightly. I say that every time I'm here. It doesn't make sense right now. My last visit wasn't that long ago. Kyra simply laughed before letting him go fully in and ushering the two of you into her apartment. Then she turned to you, a wide grin pulling at her lips. Yui, it's so nice you came along with, and as a bonus, you both arrived in one piece. Yeah, it's so good to see you. It's been a long time. Kyra beamed at the both of you, and while you would have loved nothing more than to settle down and rest after the drive, you could see she wasn't going to let you go that easily.
So?
How's the trip? I admit I was just a pinch worried. You barely made it. I appreciate your concern, but it was alright. You felt the fussing was unnecessary. You let Cove answer that. This one. You made it without a scratch. Kyra clapped her hands together, the bracelets around her wrist jingling. I'm so proud. I can hardly believe how mature you both are. Where did all those smarts come from? Cove ran a hand over his hair with an awkward chuckle.
I don't know.
Maybe I got them from some of my parents. His mom looked up at him deeply, her eyes glistening as she shook the sentimentality off with a wave of her hand.
Any
You have to be half asleep already, huh? I don't want to keep you up much longer. Early morning and any whoosies. How do you want to deal with the sleeping arrangements? I've only got my own room and Cove's, though the living room couch isn't bad. You can use my bed. I'll just sleep on the floor in my room. It doesn't matter for one night. No, I'll sleep with you! Kyra laughed out loud, startling you both. You realized an eyebrow at her outburst gave her a quizzical look. Oh yeah, you'll just stay on the floor. You couldn't handle that much back when you were 13, with both your parents in the room. Oh, shit, no! Not the road trip! Not the road trip! Hell no! She brought up the road trip! Cove blushed a dark red and gaped, completely unprepared for her to pull out that embarrassing moment from the past.
Hey.
Mom! You blushed, you laughed it off. He had a long day, it's cruel to tease, the poor baby's so late, even if it's true. Yep, she's right, that's literally what you do. You were annoyed, she noticed he's sensitive, it was uncalled for. You put a hand on Cove's arm in a show of support. Blushies. Was it really necessary to talk about this? I'll take the floor. I'll sleep on the couch in the living room. Thank you for letting me have the bed. I'll take the floor. Cove shook his head, dismissing the idea immediately.
No.
You're the guest. I don't want to take your... Fine, I'll have the bed. Thank you for offering. So would you be okay with me sleeping on the floor in the room? I'd rather be there than out in the open in the living room, even if there is the couch. I prefer if you're on the couch. Yeah, you can sleep there. Kyra giggling softly, drawing your attention back to her. All funny stuff aside, you need to get some sleep for tomorrow. Seems like you're setting yourselves up to not get any. I know that sounds really captious, but I'm a mom. I have to say these things. Come on, we're not little kids having a sleepover. We're responsible adults, right, Yui? Yeah, we're responsible. No, we're not. Well, I am. Cove, though. Cove is, though I can't say the same for myself. He simply smiled at him. Maybe you should sleep in the living room after all. Cove is, though I can't say the same for myself. With a crooked smile, Cove shrugged and made a smile amused sound. I'll leave it at that then. Just remember that the walls are thin in this apartment. If you can't settle down and sleep, I might have to separate you.
What do you mean by that?
We'll be good.
Marvelous.
Perfect. Kyra clasped her hands together, her bracelets softly tinkling against each other again. It's only getting later, so I better let you prepare for bed. She nodded towards the hallway and gave you a small smile. I'll play hostess for a sec and show you where the bathroom is first, Yui, and where you'll be staying tonight. Thank you. You hoisted your travel bag back over your shoulder and followed behind Kyra and down the hallway. Cove shuffled along behind you, disappearing into the bedroom while his mom had you go to the restroom. Your apartment was small but nicely decorated in soft, cool colors with plenty of artwork hanging on the walls to give it character. After being shown the bathroom and wishing Kyra a good night, you headed into the room and found Cove already there. Oh, nice room! He had changed into his sleepwear for the night as well. Looking around, he found the bedroom to look much as the same as the rest of the apartment, but with small ocean elements you were sure Cove would have much enjoyed when he stayed here. All in all, the room was pretty and clean, though it almost looked more like a hotel guest room than a bedroom. Cove only spent a few weeks out of the year there, so it made sense that it wasn't especially lived in.
So?
What do you think? It's pretty nice, huh? Mom always kept it clean and everything, even when I'm not here. It's a great room. It seriously looks like a hotel room. That's sweet of her. He nodded. A really good hotel room. Cove huffed and turned away. He was being defensive over your teasing. When he went back to the room, you jumped in bed and under the covers, just as Cove was shuffling into his sleeping bag on the floor. Waited until he was settled in before you flipped off the lights, and a soft glow from outside peeked throughout the blinds, casting shadows over the floor. Close your eyes, blocking everything out.
Night.
Night, Cove. Sleep well. The room grew quiet as the two of you wound down for the night, and you found yourself listening to the sounds of the city outside the window. The noise out there was so different to what you were used to back home. Cars zooming past and people out having fun instead of crashing waves and the ocean winds cocooning your house in their embrace. Cove shifted around in his sleeping bag, making the fabric crinkle loudly. I've outgrown this thing. I should have checked it earlier, but the trip was kind of short notice. Are you really sure you don't want the bed? Why don't we share? You dropped the topic for a night. Why don't we share? It's big enough. Cove inhaled deeply, the fabric of his sleeping bag crinkling loudly as he fidgeted beneath. I told my mom I was going to stay on the floor. He frowned, wondering when that had ever stopped him before. Yeah, exactly. Literally, you climb through my window like almost every night. This is nothing. Did you really plan on going through with that? No. He hesitated a little, the silence stretching between you. You couldn't help but smile to yourself. You knew him well. His sleeping bag rustled again, and through the dim light you saw him stand and head towards the bed. He took in a deep breath as he ran his hand across the top of the blanket, gathering his nerves as his eyes met yours. Then he paused, held to the side, as if silently asking permission. It's all right. You shuffled over to make room for him as he pulled the bedding up and crawled beneath the covers, leaving the two of you close together, but not quite touching. He exhaled a heavy breath as he lay down on the side, his head getting comfy on the pillow next to yours. You had a strange feeling in your stomach, like it was doing little somersaults, but it felt good to have him close. He raised his fingers and delicately brushed the tips of your cheeks, drawing a shaky sigh from your lips. His touch was warm and feathery light, making you feel tingly all over.
Is this gonna turn into sex? Because I cannot be doing sex right now.
When his eyes met yours again, you found yourself lost in them, the world becoming still and silent around you. Then he froze, his muscles tensing as he closed up like a clam and his breath hitched in his throat. He attempted to whisper something, but was completely lost on you. With that having to suffice as a warning, Cove jumped out of the bed and crouched down onto the floor, his head held in his hands as he took in a few deep, stuttering breaths. You bolted upright in the bed, staring down at him with a mixture of alarm and amusement. Are you okay? I thought I feel like it did before when we were younger, but it's different now. I'm sorry, Yui. Really sorry. I'm just so... He panted deeply in and out, as though he had just finished running an entire marathon. After finally steadying his breathing to a normal rhythm, he crawled back into his sleeping bag and huddled down on the floor, his back turned to you. Well, an attempt was made. Oh well. Sorry. You understood, you're disappointed, you're amused, you're not pleased. Oh shit! I did not mean to click that! Oh shit! That was Cove for you. He usually needed at least one trial run before he could take that kind of step forward. We can always try again another night. You don't need to apologize. Thank you for trying. I'm not surprised this happened again. You didn't say anything about it. Oh, I can go back. Oh, I said I was amused. Whatever. You don't need to apologize. He made a small noise, acknowledging that he had heard you, but said no more. With the event over, he laid back down in bed alone for this night. The next day dawned, bringing with it sounds of birds chirping happily outside the window. You opened your eyes slowly, letting them adjust to the light as you tried to recall where you were, and remembering the unfamiliar sight of Cove's second bedroom. You had woken up on your own, you reached over to turn off the alarm you had set. Cove had nudged you awake. Cove nudged me awake. Rise and shine, Yui. Cove shook your shoulder, and you groaned dramatically and buried your head beneath your pillow. 5 more minutes.
No way.
We've got to get started. Sitting up in bed, you let out a yawn and stretched your arms above your head. You still felt pretty groggy. You felt okay. You were quite refreshed. Groggy. You're used to sleeping in longer than this, and the late night hadn't helped. Morning. 2 of you were on completely different wavelengths right now. You pulled yourself out of bed, grabbing a fresh change of clothes and your toiletries before heading to the bathroom. After all that, you met Cove back in his room. He was sitting on the floor when you entered, sorting through a bunch of stuff in a box, determining what to bring and what to leave behind. Hey.
Hey.
Can you pull out the stuff in those drawers? You nodded, though he hadn't even looked up from his task, so you know he wouldn't have seen. Heading over to his drawer, you started the task of taking out various items and setting them on the ground in front of Cove. After a while, it became clear to you that Cove was acting strange. Whenever you went near him, he was flinching over your presence. I guess he was still feeling weird about last night. It happened a few more times before he couldn't take the awkwardness any longer. You dropped the stuff you were holding down in front of him and raised a questioning eyebrow. Is everything okay?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about last night, again, about not staying in bed with you. I know you try not to mind or be mad at me, but I wish I didn't have to make you accept me backtracking all the time. He swallowed thickly, struggling to find the right words to explain himself. I do think it felt nice, really. It's just also not bad, but good in an inconvenient way.
I mean...
Laying together like that, being so close, it gets too hot, you know? His cheeks flushed with color, and he immediately trailed off, his eyes firmly fixed on the floor. Ah,
So you were horny.
gotcha. I get it. You will stay the whole night next time, right? It was too intense for you, huh? Maybe I'm the one who should apologize. I'm sorry to bother you. Yeah, it's annoying, but it's what I signed up for with you. Do better next time. No. I'm not saying that. That sounds fucking awful. You're not an acceptance. It was that intense for you, huh? Maybe I should be the one who should apologize. His eyes widened, a pink tinge creeping into his cheeks before he could duck his head enough to hide it. Don't worry about it. You don't need to do anything. Let's get back to packing. With it more or less resolved, he went to grab some more items as Cove focused on the box in front of him once again. Oh hey, look at this. When you turned towards the sound of Cove's voice, you found him digging through one of the drawers beneath the bed.
Neat.
There's something I definitely need to bring. Neat. Craning your head, you got a better glimpse of what he was holding. An old yellowing book. When you opened it up, there were a few dried pressed flowers between the pages. Those had been gifts you'd given to him for his mom's place. Something for him to remember you by and to make his time here less lonely. He kept them the whole time. You don't have to hold on to these forever. I was only lending you those. I think I'll take them back now, he joked. It's adorable that you care so much for them. He started to feel emotional. Of course you should take them. Emotional. Cove looked up at you when you sniffled quietly, seeming concerned. You wiped away the tears that you were building in your eyes, feeling a little silly. Sorry. He smiled at you, his face softening. Why would you apologize? It's alright. It's wonderful. Thank you.
It's nice.
These are special. It was important, having a piece of you with me when we were apart. I feel the same way. That's why I gave them to you. Cove smiled, pleased that the feeling was mutual. Then the expression became more amused. And did you keep the souvenir's eyebrow back? Of course. Nope, he said jokingly. No, he said honestly. Nope. He shook his head with a grin. Thanks. Another hour passed by in silence. and you were happy to see you were making great progress with Cove's room, with only the closet left to sort through. You took a minute to take a mouthful of water before your bottle and perched on the edge of the bed, feeling productive. Cove glanced over at you and paused, putting down the tape gun he had been using to seal up his boxes. You raised an eyebrow. You know, it's really strange to see you sitting in this room. Why? He frowned a little, his eyes distant and his voice quiet when he spoke next.
That's...
During the visits to Mom's when I was sitting alone in this room, I'd sometimes think how you weren't here. It was a weird feeling at the time that you weren't around, and now that you are here in this exact place, I don't know how to explain the feeling. He shrugged it off and smiled a little, as though he'd said already enough and didn't want to risk sounding silly. Life is pretty confusing is all. I didn't know you thought about me when you were away. That's true. Life makes no sense. I missed you so much when you were gone, you smiled at him. This one. He huffed to laugh at this, his eyes crinkling in the corners as he made a face at you. It's not like I could forget you. He looked away satisfied, heading over to the closet and the last of the items to be sorted. Before long, every box and closet and drawer had been thoroughly combed through with the items either neatly packed into boxes or organized and returned to their proper place. We're done. Good job for us. I'm gonna change out of my PJs for the drive. Yeah. When the two of you headed into the living room ready to get everything finalized and hit the road, you found Kyra in the kitchen pouring a cup of tea. Cove headed towards her, leaning casually against the counter that divided the two spaces. Hey, you didn't have to get up so early.
Come on.
Are you crazy? Of course I had to see you off before you go. You can't sneak away while I'm out cold. She beamed at him, and in all honesty seemed more than happy to be up and getting ready for the day. I fucking love Kyra. Honestly, when I first, got into this game, I thought Cove got, the broken arm because I thought, his mom was abusive. But I'm so glad this isn't the case, because Kyra is a treasure. She's so fucking precious. I love her. Do you want some breakfast? I got some muesli? I can't fucking breathe! Or eggs and toast. Oh, and some of that fruity cereal you used to love. That's okay, we should really eat on the road. Kyra smiled sadly, a little disappointed, but she seemed to understand that your time was running thin. I thought you might say that. In that case, I packed you some snacks for the road.
What do you think?
Even if you don't end up eating them, take it anyway, just in case. You can always feed him to Cliff when you get home. And tell him I said hi. Cove laughed and shook his head, knowing his dad would love nothing more than to polish off whatever food Kyra had prepared for you.
Thank you.
You really didn't have to. Thanks for the snacks. That's so nice you've organized this for us. It must be a mom thing to know stuff like that. I'll definitely eat whatever you've packed. He smiled quietly at her. I'll definitely eat whatever you've picked. You better save some for me too. Kyra giggled, hiding her mouth behind her hand. There's plenty there for both of you. She returned your smile with one of her own before putting her cup of tea aside. Well, I'll help you get the car packed.
Sure.
Sure, thanks. The three of you got to move on, taking the boxes from Cove's bedroom and heading down to fill the back seat of the car until there's barely an inch of space left in the back and trunk. With all of you helping, it only took a couple of trips to move everything and you were done before you knew it. Then it was truly time to say goodbye. You convened back inside the apartment where Kyra looked over the two of you with a quiet smile. It was great to see you both. Thank you for coming. She gave each of you a hug and you felt a little sad that you hadn't been able to spend more time with her. It was good to see you too, Mom. Cove embraced her in return, the two of them holding on to each other for a few seconds longer. I'll miss you, but I'll visit again soon.
Of course.
You better. Hey, we should make plans for you to visit us too. I'll let you know when it's settled. I'd love that. Kyra bundled all the stuff she prepared into a bag and handed them over to you. You took a quick peek at what she had packed. There was fruit, nuts, seeds, hard-boiled eggs, and some veggie sticks. Ooh!
Cool.
Good to see you've got some fresh food options now. The snacks I brought weren't. Kyra shook her head at him and let out a soft laugh as though she wouldn't have expected anything else. I seriously hope you're feeding yourself better than that at home. Yeah, of course. I'm just not on trips. I can live with that then. She looked over at him fondly, her eyes at last focusing on his face and feeling its emotion. I'm going to miss you, baby.
Me too.
Goodbye. Thank you for letting us come. We'll all be together again before you know it. You didn't know what to say. This one. I hope so. Kyra put an arm around you both, pulling you in tight for her sides for one final squeeze.
Bye.
Have a safe trip. We will. With the last goodbye, you exited the apartment, though Cove hesitated for a moment in the door, his expression distant. You weren't sure what he was doing, though you tentatively took a step towards him. Everything okay? Your voice seemed to bring him back to earth, and he shook his head to clear his thoughts, his green hair swaying from side to side.
Come on.
Yeah, let's go. With that, the two of you headed back down to the car ready to make the long trip home. Soon enough, you were on the wide open road with a car full of Cove's things in only one destination, Sunset Bird, California. The drive went as smoothly as as could be expected, with the morning slowly creeping into midday as the miles flew by. The day flew by in a whir of open road and sunshine, and before you knew it, it was early afternoon. By that point, you had already crossed the state line. Cove announced that he had planned a little stop on the way home. He was quite pleased with himself as he arrived at the precipice. The Redwood National Park. Shaded beneath a canopy of enormous redwood trees, he drove along. When Cove parked the car, you pushed the door to get out, and the first thing you did was look up. Enormous redwood trees surrounded you on all sides, their massive trunks shooting straight up into a canopy of foliage overhead. This is just like the trip we took when we were kids. Aww. There were too many of them to count, stretching on and on as far as you could see. You squinted against the sunlight that was peeking through the leaves and dancing on the paths around you. It's great, right? He smiled at you from over the roof of the car before glancing around the place fondly. Remember the trip our families took here that one summer? It was cool going on a journey and seeing the forest in person, even if we didn't stay long.
So...
And I guess we can only stay for even less this time, but oh well. It just seemed like a good time to stop by. Who knows when we'll get another chance. His voice got a little softer at the end. It seemed to be bittersweet for him, being in a place he was so fond of, but not having the time to appreciate it fully. You were pleased to have stopped there. You felt pretty good to stop being there. You didn't mind either way. You would prefer to not stop at all. I'm pleased. It was a beautiful place to stretch your legs and take in some fresh air. Thanks for bringing me here. There will be more chances in the future, I promise. Better than taking a break at a gas station. I'll put up with you for the trees. I'll put up with this place for you. He said nothing about it. There'll be more chances in the future, I promise. Cove smiled, shoving his hands into his pockets and dipping his head. I'm gonna hold you to that. Two of you walked around for a while, completely dwarfed by the sheer scale of the redwoods. It kind of put your view of yourself and everything in a strange perspective. You took in a lungful of clean forest air, listening to the sounds of birdsong and a cool breeze rustling through the underbrush, taking advantage of the space to move around freely. However, you felt about being there. It was a totally different scene than sitting in that old car for hours and hours. You wrapped an arm around Cove. You took Cove's hand. You felt Cove nudge your hand. I'm gonna take Cove's hand. He seemed tense at first, but he didn't let go. Eventually, he intertwined his fingers with yours, slowly relaxing. Being here again, you couldn't help but reminisce on what else had happened during the trip you had taken here all that time ago. There was a lot of things that had reminded you of it recently. You looked over at Cove, who seemed to be lost in peace of the place, and you wondered if any of it crossed his mind. Smiling at the sight, you thought back on what had been a highlight of that long-gone vacation. You know, we spent the night in that loft together. Elizabeth teased us mercilessly on that trip, remember? Our families were so close. Remember how a bird stole your dad's lunch? This one. You managed it then. I was stupider then, sorry. You had to crack a smile and let the little debacle from last night behind you again. There was barely enough room for the two of us, but it was fun. Cove chuckled and shook his head at the moment. It was memorable, especially when I got caught up there by my parents in the morning. He laughed, and soon enough you were joining him. It had been pretty embarrassing for him at the time, but you were glad he could look back and laugh about it now. You continued chatting about the trip a little while longer, about the things he had seen and done, even eaten. A lot of the memories Cove had of the trip were similar to your own, but you were also surprised to hear of a few other things from this point of view. So much had happened, and that there is no shortage of things to talk about. The place certainly had a nostalgic quality about it. Your spirits were light as you ambled past information boards and picnic areas. Before long, you decided it was time to bring this short stop to an end, and headed back to the car to get on the road again. Cove sighed when he finally reached the vehicle, jangling the keys in his hand before unlocking the doors.
Well,
I wish we didn't have to go, but we're going to be responsible and not stay longer than we should. How grown up of you! You smiled slightly, and with that, the two of you jumped into the car, buckled in, and he put it in drive. You were getting closer and closer to town as the sun started setting, though we're still far enough away that the radio stations were unfamiliar to you. Oh, he's so handsome! Yo, I know I said I'm about to bust, but I'm about to bust! Cove twisted the dial this way and that way before stumbling onto a channel with a song he seemed to like. That was a rare gift from fates in a sea of static, strange radio jockeys and grating tunes. His face immediately brightened at the sound of it, and he drummed his fingers along the bottom of the steering wheel happily. Sitting back in the seat, he bobbed his head and shimmied his shoulders in time to the tune, all while mouthing along to the words. Occasionally, he even lifted one hand from the wheel to gesture with his fingers for a specific line. You smiled, you chuckled softly. You shook your head, you sang along, you ignored it. Chuckled slightly. Cove looked over and rolled his eyes with a smile, clearly enjoying himself despite everything. The song ended and Cove reached over to start cycling through the radio stations again. Upon finding nothing tolerable, he flipped the dial off in defeat, leaned back in his seat with a sigh. He rested your head on your hand and stared out the window as the sky darkened, watching the landscape slowly melt into more familiar views. The miles went on, and any energy you had earlier was beginning to drain away. You imagined home and your family. You'd be there together soon. You know, it's been all these years living in Sunset Bird and taking a few weeks each summer visiting my mom in that second room. That's not gonna happen anymore, not really. I can still see my parents, but the way it all works between us has changed forever. I'm excited to be on the brink of real adulthood. I'm worried about how things will be in the future. I feel the same way about my parents too. You should lighten up. You said nothing. I feel the same way about my parents too. Yeah, I was always worried about moving out when I turned into an adult. But, you know, my mom's like, hey, as long as you pay rent, you can stay. So, yeah, I know they'll always be there for me, but we don't really have the same relationship we used to. Cove's mouth pulled into a tight line, but he gave a small nod. You got the feeling that he understood how you felt. Cove stared straight ahead, down the long, long road. The path looked like it'd never end from where you were, but that wasn't true. Eventually, he found a few more words to say.
I'm so glad.
I think it's good we were able to do this trip without any parents or chaperones. It was just us. We did it all. I don't know. I feel a little more independent now. A little more ready for what's ahead. Right. I felt ready for a while now. I'm not sure I'll ever be ready. He didn't respond to his conclusion. I felt ready for a while now. It's exciting. Topics seemed to wear on Cove, and he made an attempt to find something else to speak on. So I'm kind of sad about getting back. I'm gonna miss having you right there tonight. I'm gonna miss it too. With the feelings confirmed as mutual, the two of you fell into a comfortable silence. The sky outside grew darker as the hours passed by, the stars blinking on like tiny fireflies painted onto a canvas of blue. The scenery continued transitioning between open roads, industrial areas, and beach towns, becoming increasingly recognizable as time went on. You felt somewhat disconnected from the world around you as you watched from your window, your tired mind growing hazy. It was a strange, reflective feeling, but peaceful nonetheless. Soon enough, the world would return to you, and you'd find your feet firmly on the ground. It couldn't be helped. The adventure would end, life would continue, but your memories would linger on. And then, summer ended. Move on to the next step? Yes. Moths bounced against your window, attracted by the light of your room. A siren called in the slowly darkening sky. Just as the days were coming to an end, so too would summer. Liz would be moving back into the dorms before long. Luckily, Lee had been able to come stay for a short trip before her own new journey began. She'd officially been accepted into her first choice college a few weeks ago. This was her last chance to see you all in person for... You flicked through the plans for the next few months, realizing that you didn't even know when you'd have the opportunity for everyone to be in the same place again. It was hard to think that you'd likely be seeing even less of your cousin going forward, but you were delighted that she was pursuing her dreams. While you were still with each other, your family was going to have dinner together. As ever, the Holdens were tagging along too. You're going to the Chinese restaurant. Your destination was that tropical place. Tropical place! You hadn't really discovered the tropical restaurant until you were a bit older, but everyone's enthusiasm resulted in so many different visits that more than made up for the lost time. Liz and Lee were excited to squeeze in another trip before setting off again. Technically, you were getting ready to go out, though your mind was only half on the task. It was strange to think that summer was coming to an end, yet you wouldn't be returning to school. That pattern had been in place for as long as you could remember, and you had come to feel like a natural rhythm, as incapable as the coming of the tide. This was the first time that you were going to be able to set your own tune. Whatever came next was entirely up to you. The future looked bright. You couldn't wait to start your new life. You were nervous but ready. It was all so uncertain it worried you. Just thinking about it made you queasy with stress. When I became an adult, it was also uncertain. It worried you. You didn't know what you wanted to do. There were so many options with advantages and disadvantages, and this is the first time you had to make a momentous decision. You felt as if you stood alone at the crossroads. In this changing world, who could know what the right choice would be? Mom called up from downstairs, tearing you from your thoughts as she told you it was time to head off. You hurried downstairs, hoping that the evening would be sufficient to distract you from your anxieties. Everyone piled into the car. While it was marketed as being suitable to hold 5 people, in practice it made for a very tight fit. Your mom sitting in the front were fine. You, Liz, and Lee were squished into the back. Lee in the middle, wedged between you and your sister. My mom was an excellent timekeeper. Thanks to her efforts, you pulled up near the restaurant on time. The process of getting out of the car was slightly easier than squeezing into it, with much less coordination required to release seatbelts than to secure them. You gave Lee a hand as she clambered out of the middle seat, then headed into the building as a group. A waiter greeted you as you entered. Ma let him know how many of you would be in total, and he went to arrange a table that met your needs. He returned promptly to guide you to your seats. You slipped into your chair, and it felt all wrong. No matter how you shifted in your seat, comfort eluded you. Everyone else seemed fine as they settled into their own seats. Your drink's order had been taken when the Holdens came through the door. You were pointed in your direction, though with Mom waving an arm in the air, it was hardly necessary. As greetings were being exchanged, Cove took a seat opposite to you. It had been left empty by unspoken acknowledgement that you and Cove would be wanting to sit together. Mr. Holden sat beside him.
Hi.
It's great to see you! Glad you could make it. Hello, everyone. You wouldn't believe how hungry I am.
I see.
Came to the right place, then. There was some laughter, though Liz groaned playfully, shaking her head at Mom's sense of humor. Growing up, she'd have complained, and Mom would have responded by making another comment. Liz had mellowed over the years, but she still made a show of despairing at Mom's jokes. Her reaction to them had become a joke in its own right. Menus were soon passed around, and a temporary hushed voice fell over the table as everyone read. It didn't take long, punctured by comments about what people had eaten here before, and light chatter about what people were considering tonight. Once the waiter disappeared with your orders, Cliff piped up.
Okay.
So I've got some good news. Kyra's making a trip out here tomorrow. Cove nodded, turning from his follower to the rest of the table. Yeah, we talked about it and figured it was a good time for everyone.
Very nice.
That's great! Everyone reacted positively to the news, though Ma looked wistful.
It's a shame.
If only we'd known. Here we are, having a big meal without her. If we waited one day, she could have joined us. Mom patted Ma on the back, gently nudging her from the realm of possibilities and what-ifs, and back to the evening that was going so well. Chin up. Lee and Liz will still be here tomorrow. We'll just have to throw another get-together and get the fun train chugging along. Ma smiled warmly, taking Mom's hand in hers. That's true. There's plenty to celebrate right now, but there will be more good news and good times on the horizon.
Right.
And speaking of, that's not all we've got either. Mr. Holden's eyes were alight as he sat up, straight in his chair, face angled toward his son. He barely let a beat go by, nudging Cove with his elbow, pushing him to follow up on the announcement. It was the very first picture of a proud papa.
Well,
It's just, I switched over to working full-time instead of only part-time, plus, I've been looking at apartments, there's a few I can choose from. He flicked his gaze up at everyone around the table, a smile creeping over his face. I'll be pretty busy going forward. Apartments. He was moving. Cove was going to move out of his dad's house after 10 years. He wasn't going to be in your neighborhood anymore. Mr. Holden gripped on one of Cove's shoulders and gave it a loving shake. His excitement couldn't be contained. Incredible! Cove's actually going to make it to adulthood. It's a miracle! Mr. Holden leaned back in his chair, staring up at the ceiling in mock wonder.
I'm so glad.
I wasn't convinced I'd be able to rear a kid all the way to this point, but thankfully I lucked out and got the best boy a dad could have asked for. Dad. Despite his genuine bashfulness, which left him unable to meet anyone's eyes after the attention thrust his way, he was happy.
thanks.
I was really lucky too. You're a good dad.
Aw.
Come here. Mr. Holden threw an arm around Cove's neck, pulling him as close as possible. He rubbed his cheek on the top of his son's head while Cove chuckled, accepting the affection with good humor. He looked around at the faces of the company here. He'd been on this journey with everyone here for years, seen them falter and grow, and they had watched you go through the same. Cove was leaving his family home. Liz was heading back to college while Lee was starting at hers. You were staying close, but it was clear you were all heading in different directions, two different destinations. Some near and some far, but it wouldn't be long until you were all going your own way. It was all too much, though it was bittersweet, it wasn't all that bad. Maybe this was all for the best. It was all too much. You looked down at your lap, twisting the napkin in your balled fist. It was one thing to know this was going to happen theoretically, and quite another to be faced with the reality. Your family and friends had given you stability no matter what life threw at you. Realizing that they wouldn't be there in the same way was like putting a foot down on a stair that wasn't there. Your heart plunged as you sought to find metaphorical grounding. Cove brought some attention to himself with a clearing of his throat and small interjection. I'm gonna stretch my legs while we're waiting for the food and everything.
Sure.
Sure thing, bud. With a tiny smile, he nodded at his dad, but the lightness to his expression faded when he moved to face you. Wanna come? It was tempting to be subtle, but there was very obviously something on his mind, something he wanted to talk to you about alone. You looked up at him, listlessly as he rose from his seat. You weren't sure if he felt like talking, but having an excuse to get some space didn't sound like a horrible idea, so you nodded. Take care. With those parting words, the two of you walked around the place. He was trying to get as far away from everyone else as possible without actually exiting the building. What did you need to say? He hadn't admitted what this was about, but he didn't need to.
What's wrong?
I was going to say something about all that stuff my dad brought up, but are you okay? He peered at you, and you could tell his concern was earnest. You were being distant, and he had noticed. I'm fine. No, I'm alright. Do I look okay? Or Why are you so worried? Is something wrong? You said nothing. I'm fine. That's a lie.
That's...
Are you worried about things ending? He continued to look deeply into your eyes. All you could focus on was the aqua blue of his irises and the concerned crinkle of his eyelids. You know, I'm anxious about it too. What do you think, Cove? Yes, of course. You didn't say anything. What do you think, Cove? Your tone was harsh and upset, Cove not once looking away. I don't like that you won't be there anymore, but at least not like before. I won't be able to just walk across the street and find you. I won't run to the beach with you whenever it's nice out. You won't be there to sneak up to my window at night to see me. Cove's expression dropped. There's something horrified in his eyes and sorrow in his frown. Even when I'm not across the street anymore, you can always call or text me. I don't care how late it is. We'll talk every day. I'll make sure we do. He clenched his hand around his wrist tightly. I don't want to lose what we have, Yui. His voice was quiet, barely a whisper. He paused to take you in, and then his voice came out, louder but meek. This really matters to me. A lot. More than anything else. There was steel in his eyes, a rare firmness that you didn't see from Cove often. You continued to feel upset. Your feelings had been dragged out, and you had no choice of calming down now. You couldn't help but feel you were losing him. Cove was leaving you.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't want to make you feel bad by bringing this up. I don't know what I wanted. But I felt I had to say something about this. If not now, then when? Out of the corner of your eye, you noticed a nearby table people were staring. Cove's outburst had attracted attention. The eyes on you just made things worse. You felt overwhelmed, smothered by everything going on. You couldn't handle this. I need some air. Alone. Cove seemed pained, but he didn't protest when you brushed past him and left the restaurant. There's nowhere else to go but out. Aw, shit, did I do a fucky wucky? You stepped out onto the sidewalk, a couple cars drove by onto the main street, and the breeze hit your face. You took a deep breath now that the conversation was no longer suffocating you. You weren't quite sure what to do next. Gaining space had been the only plan. You patted your sides on reflex and pulled out the spare key for your mom's car. Walking fast, you went down the sidewalk to the part of the street where your parents had parked. You remember going past a particular building on the way into the restaurant and managed to backtrack your way into the car without incident. You pulled open one of the back doors and tucked yourself inside. You shut the door and the car beeped when you locked it again. While putting the key away, you switched it out from your phone. There were concerned messages from your family. Were you okay? Was something happening? Another text came in from your sister at that moment. You didn't respond to any of it and held down the power button. You looked back at your phone and stared at the black blank screen. You could see part of your face reflecting back at you. Then you dropped your phone on the seat. You cried. You groaned loudly. You sat completely still. I'm gonna cry, you little bitch. Your eyes burned and you blinked slowly. You felt warm tears drip down your cheeks. Your breath hitched. Suddenly, or maybe not so suddenly, as this had been building for a while, you started to cry. Then you tried to relax, empty your mind of worry, distract yourself, work through your emotions. Work through my emotions. It is your best effort to reflect on the situation and sort yourself out. A few minutes passed by. You breathed it in quietly. Car started to get warm, but you didn't feel like turning it on the AC to get going or roll down the windows. You wanted to text Cove where you went so you didn't worry. You wanted to text your family where you went so you didn't worry. You wanted to ask Cove to come to see you. You just wanted to sit there. You wanted to ask Cove to come see you. You picked up your phone from the cushion and pushed the power button. It took a minute to boot up. There are plenty of additional messages. You planned on checking out your family's text later and tapped on Cove's number first. You knew that you didn't actually want to be away from Cove. Sure, you'd need some space, but that couldn't only last for so long before you wanted him with you once more. Hey, Cove, can I see you? I'm at the car. Let me know. Cove texted back quickly, almost instantly. Okay. That was a relief. Another message followed shortly after. I'm here. What? When you looked up from your phone and out the windows, nothing stood out as obviously Cove's shape, and he wasn't easy to miss. You were about to ready to text him back when you saw a shock of green out of the corner of your eye. Cove stood up. He'd been sitting on the pavement, leaning against the car door. He straightened out and smiled carefully. He pointed towards the closest car door and raised his shoulders in a clear question. He wanted to know if it was okay to hop in. You nodded, not seeing the point of keeping him awkwardly outside. Cove walked around the other side of the car, opposite of you. He put his hand on the door handle and pulled. You tried to open the door and obviously wasn't expecting it to be locked. You pressed the unlock button and he smiled after you heard the click. He sat down and then quietly closed the door behind him. For a moment, he faced straight ahead. His hands flinched when he got halfway through putting on his seatbelt before he realized he wasn't actually going anywhere. God damn it, Cove, you fucking idiot. I love you. He dropped his arms and the seatbelt slid back to the side of the car. Neither of you seemed to know what to say now. Eventually, Cove turned to face you. He seemed serious. Everyone cared about when you left the restaurant. They all wanted to be here, but I promised that I'd look out for you. He gripped the side of his cushion in regard to his lap. Like Liz, she told me I better not be making things worse or I'd never be considered a trusted adult for the rest of my life. But yeah, everyone's here for you, even if it's just me in the car. Okay. Cove stared deep into your eyes. He knows that he had some redness around his. You can do it. We can do it. You make a good life for ourselves. No matter how hard it seems, we can do it. He gripped your shoulders and he knew what he was doing, his best to project confidence. He wasn't sure about himself, but he was trying for your sake. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Cove. I'm not so sure. I know what you're doing and you don't have to. He nodded along. Thank you, Cove. He nodded and seemed almost larger than life. That was something about Cove. You could bring out the best parts of you. Cove then studied you from over his shoulder with a soft expression. He twisted his body to the side and held open his open arms. You raised your eyebrows. Come on, I'm gonna hug you. You pulled yourself towards the middle seat so that you could reach him properly. You had to climb over one of his legs that he had resting across the seats. You turned so that he was completely sideways in his seat, back pressed to the car door, and made space in front of him for you. You settled down against him and leaned against his chest. You wiggled it to fit him comfortably. He wrapped both of his arms around you and rested one of his cheeks on top of your head. He was very snug. He kissed your forehead gently and you relaxed into him. You breathed him in, the scent that was uniquely Cove. Oceany, citrusy, he made you feel secure and precious. He was right here, and he cared. It was hard to dwell on the future troubles when he was doing his best to comfort you.
Hey.
Yui. His voice was calming and his eyes were full of the fondness for you. His mouth quirked into a crooked smile. I have a great plan. We can just stop thinking about the future and all of that. You had no idea what he meant. You didn't acknowledge your confusion and continued. I'll still get that little apartment and you can move in too. I'll stay as close to here as possible and I'll get a new job on the shopping street. Hey yo, I get to move in with Cove? I'll sell pretzels. He lightly stroked your head as he spoke. On the word pretzel, he traced the loop-de-loop shape that he had a suspicion was supposed to be a pretzel. You can probably find a job there too. You could also sell pretzels. We'll be business partners. And then, we'll do that forever. We never have to worry about what to do or where to go or letting our lives change ever again.
So?
What do you think? You laughed through tears, you smiled, you shook your head, you lightly swatted Cove's arm, you snuggled closer. Laughed through tears. It was just so ridiculous, couldn't help but laugh even when you could feel your eyes water. It's perfect. You're a genius. Cove, that plan sucks. There's no way we're doing that. Is it bad that I actually like the sound of that plan? You stayed quiet. This one? Not at all. Cove chuckled, appearing entirely too innocent. I'm pleased you agree. I can't wait. Pretzels and you. What kind of pretzels will we sell? We will have pretzels for our meals too. Better research the apartments we'll get. I also like to perform on the shopping street. We will have pretzels for our meals too. At the start of our day as pretzel merchants, should we get into the mood by eating pretzels? Yep, you are what you eat. We'll make mini pretzels that we can stick in a bowl and it'll just be like cereal. It was fun to not be so serious for a bit, though soon Cove's tone changed. Yui. He started to speak but drifted off. All the sounds of the world outside were muffled in distance. In that space, in that moment, it really felt as if there was no one except you and Cove. Cove softly ran his hand up and down your arm. It felt reassuring. Finally, he was able to continue his thought. No matter what, you can count on me whenever you need something, or even if you just want it. We're becoming more independent, but you're never actually alone in this world. Thank you, yawned without a world. Sounds like I'll never be rid of you then, huh? You joked. You kissed them. This one. Yeah. You considered the thought of living with Cove in this tiny apartment in the pretzel plan, or just be in general. I'll be fine living with you if that could ever work out. Better live together sometime, just not like that. You stayed quiet. I'd be fine living with you.
Really?
I'd like it too. Cove beamed. You felt so much better than you did 5 minutes ago. It was your ray of sunshine. Cove turned beet red to meet your eyes. He was happy, even though his blush took over his face. I guess we should be able to head back without carrying the weight of all this. That's important, after all. He paused with a smirk. You anticipated a joke, or at least an attempt at one. Our hands will finally be free for other things, like eating our meal, so that'll be nice. Thanks, Cove. Yeah, it really will be nice. That's true, our hands are free to do other things now. He sadly nodded. Did I know you were such an optimist? This one. Cove flushed and sighed with exasperation at the insinuation. You're surprised you hadn't seen that one coming. Yeah, baby, I'm so fucking lewd.
Seriously?
Yes. He laughed. Yes, I'm serious. He started to run his fingers down. Wait.
Can I fuck Cove?
Surely. Nah, hang on. I'm just gonna save this real quick. I'm just gonna save this real quick. Listen. I'm not saying I'm down bad right now. But hypothetically, if I were to click one of these answers that isn't the you laughed one, you all wouldn't be shocked, right? Started to run your fingers down his chest. Hee. You're eager, but Cove put his own hands up to his face, trying to hide yet brought up his bashful side.
Oh my god.
We probably shouldn't. This is your mom's car. Listen, dude. Please. You pouted. That made him frown in turn. Suddenly leaned into you, kissed you. You let out a surprised gasp, though you were glad. You let the kiss break just long enough for you to flip over into a more front-facing position to make reaching him easier. Then you kissed him back deeply, using your hands as much as possible. You slid one up to his neck to cradle his head. You felt his fingers trace down your back. You pressed closer and continued kissing. After a couple minutes, he broke away. His face was red, and he scratched his ears sheepishly. We shouldn't go at it too much in here. Plus, you observed his legs. His left leg was sprawled across the back seat, while his right was oddly folded in space between the seats. The back was not made for a tall guy's legs. I don't exactly fit in everything, so... Oh, I thought he was about to show us his bulge! I thought he was about to show us his bulge or something! And I was, like, worried about getting banned. The flusterment coming off of him made you laugh. You gave him a break and pulled away playfully. He smiled, pleased at how everything turned out. With that, you happily stepped into the world again. You made sure to grab your phone and the key on the way out. Cove's stomach grumbled after you locked your mom's car back up. Looks like we're heading back just in time. Yeah. It was a short walk back to the restaurant. It felt like you blinked, and then suddenly you were retaking your place at the table. You felt nervous. You didn't want to explain what happened yet. Liz took in your appearance with a grateful expression. To your surprise, she seemed alright with letting your disappearance act go. Thank goodness you're back, Yui. You have to back me up here. A hair elastic is called a hair elastic. No, they're called ponytails. It's a hair tie. I mean, you can call them a hair tie too, but I usually call them ponytails, even though that's just the hairstyle. I don't know, but I would call them a hair tie. Even just from coming into an argument, you could tell that they were just joking around. Neither Liz nor Lee was taking this semantic discussion seriously. It's a hair elastic. Lee's right. They're called hair ties. Thin scrunchy. What about rubber band? You can use both terms. I know nothing about hair stuff, Liz. Lee's right. They're called hair ties. Traitor. Your mom's laughed and you felt your discomfort subside a bit. Ma caught your eye. Listen, I wouldn't agree with Lee. I would have wished there was an option for ponytails, but that works too, I guess. Are you alright, Yui? You nodded. Throughout the next minutes, you found yourself drawn into different conversations, each one where everyone checked in on you in their own way. The warmth of everyone's love comforted you. Night fell soon after everyone finished their meals, and before you knew it, you were standing in the parking lot, saying your goodbyes and packing up the cars to go home. After the last of the chores were done, your family spent some more time together. The rest of the night felt like it was going by in the blink of an eye, and somehow the time came to retire to your room to sleep. You pulled your covers up together to your chin and settled down for the night, getting warm and cozy. As your head sank back into your pillow and you closed your eyes, your mind drifted back to everything that had happened that day. You could see it all now, behind your eyelids, as though you were experiencing it all over again. And then the image of Cove popped into your head and you smiled softly to yourself. You started to send him a text to chat, you texted him to come over, you went to sneak out to his room, you're feeling tired so you snuggled deeper into your bed. I'm gonna sneak out. If Cove could do it, then you didn't see why you shouldn't be allowed to. You made up your mind. As quietly as you could manage, you put on your shoes and slipped out of your room, closing the door behind you softly. Heading slowly down, you took care not to make the floor creak, especially the boards right by the bathroom. Those definitely squeaked. The stillness of the night made even the slightest sounds seem so much louder to your ears, and you were very aware of your mom sleeping nearby. Upon reaching the bottom, you tiptoed towards the front door. Slipping out into the crisp night air, you shut the door and took a relieving breath. Excitement rising, you dashed across the street towards Cove's house. The road, too, was surreal at this hour, familiar and yet strange. It might have been eerie at another time, but with how eager you were, you hardly cared. You attempted to find your way from the normal footpath to the side of the condo, but the limited light was making it difficult. You knew for sure which window was Cove's, and lucky for you, it was on the first floor. Unlike Cove, you wouldn't have to do any building scaling. All you need to do was to make it safely over to the fence and past the bushes without being caught or injured. Sneaking closer, you glanced over to the hedges towards Cove's bedroom window, finding it cracked open. Perfect. You won't have to knock and worry about him not answering. Hoisting yourself up with ease, you cleared the fence and avoided the shrubs, then darted over to the window. You buzzed with a nervous excitement as you approached it in the dark, having successfully made it all the way here unseen. Lifting the window up so it was fully open, you pushed yourself halfway through, your legs dangling into the underbrush below. It was a little awkward as a small shelf was right in the way. You had to take care not to knock over a couple plants, but you made it through with minimal noise. Once safely inside, you dusted yourself off and turned back to close the window gently, with only the soft glow of moonlight and Cove's fish tank there to see the way. You gave a small wave to this special fish you got to name, Hoshi. Then straining your eyes through the dark, you crept towards Cove's bed, barely making out the sleeping figure between the covers. By the sounds of his soft breathing, you could tell that he hadn't heard you come in, and a small smile tugged at your lips. You startled him with a loud noise, you poked him until he woke up, you nudged him gently, you whispered his name, you sat down on top of him, you left him to sleep and sat beside him. I'm gonna sit on him. 'Cause I know Rainbow's into that, so I think Cove will be into that too. Chuckling quietly to yourself, you crawled over the bed towards him and sat yourself right on his chest. His eyes snapped open, and he attempted to bolt upright, but couldn't move an inch with your weight on top of him. His head flopped back down with a huff. You continued smiling down at him, and he looked up back at you, completely lost.
What?
What's going on? He watched you with wide eyes, completely unsure of what to do, before he whispered something croakily. You couldn't quite make out what it was, and when he leaned in closer, he attempted to speak again. Get up. Can you please get off? Okay. Okay, so he's not into it. Okay, so it's just Rainbow. Fuck. Now that you had his attention, you scrambled off the bed and stood beside it. Cove took in a deep breath, clearly not happy with your brand of wake-up call, rolled over, and turned his face back on you. You snickered quietly to yourself as you sat there. He could figure it out on his own, and after a few more seconds he did. Wait, Yui? Yes, I'm here. He shuffled under the covers and sat up to stare at you in alarm.
What?
Why are you in my room? What happened? A small smile slipped onto your face as he finally registered your presence for real. You said nothing. I didn't want to be alone. I was bored. You hugged him. You pulled him in for a kiss. Kiss! Clutching the front of his shirt, you gently pulled him towards you and met his lips with your own. He kissed you back softly before pulling back to you quickly, looking a little flustered. Was that the whole reason? He hesitated before whispering the next part embarrassedly. To kiss me? It's not the only reason. No. Yes. Is that a bad reason? It's not the only reason. He gave a small sigh, but it held a great deal of affection. I should have known you'd do this one of these days. It's only fair. You let out a breath, feeling relieved that he didn't seem bothered by it. In fact, it felt kind of good. You thought maybe this enthusiasm was why Cove did it so often. He pushed himself up fully, swinging his legs over to the sides of the bed and leaving a spot for you beside him. His hand shook where he had held them in his lap. He was nervous. You can stay as long as you want. Really? Yeah, really. I'll go home soon. I don't know what to say. How long do you want me to stay? Can I stay the whole night?
Of course.
Hell yeah! Let's go, boys! You smiled, feeling relieved that he had agreed, and he grinned back. You could always count on him. I secretly slept over in your room before. It's fair that you get to do it too. He snickered, feeling pleased with your decision to do this. Well, it looks like you might be getting the floor yet again. Okay, but there's no way I'm letting you take the floor this time. Here we go again. No, seriously, you can have the bed. I want to share. Can you try to stay? I'll take the floor, I insist. I wouldn't mind if you took the bed. I appreciate you taking the floor, Cove. I want to share. Can you try to stay? His eyebrows dipped. He was growing visibly nervous. It was to be expected. But after what happened last time, you've been waiting for another chance. You hoped he felt the same, and it seemed he did.
Yeah.
This time we can share. You'll really stay? You won't need to be on the floor? He nodded. Holding back your delight, you tried not to grin at his sudden resolve. We're gonna share the bed. You could hear the tremble in Cove's voice as he held his hands together to keep them from shaking. He let out a breath and shook his head in front of him, mentally preparing himself. It's gonna be alright. It's not that serious. You felt nervous about it yourself. You're glad he was making an effort. He stayed calm. You felt nervous about it yourself, but you tried to put on a brave face for Cove's sake. It only took a couple of moments longer before he turned to you, attempting a weak smile. Ready? Yeah, let's get in there. Dude, it's not like we're having sex or anything. Or are we? Took another deep breath and he slipped under the covers, making room for him to get in after you. Laying as straight as a steel rod, Cove tensed up beside you, so still he was barely breathing at all. You rested on your side and faced him, your eyebrows pinched in the middle as you watched him. He looked back at you deeply. Do you need more time? I can leave until you're more set up here. No, please don't go. I just want you to stay with me. Ever so slowly, he began to relax, his fingers tentatively brushing up and down your arm. His eyes shut, lashes fanning out over the top of his cheeks, and you still half expected him to run away like last time. But he didn't. He stayed right where he was.
Don't worry about it.
You don't have to worry about me. Doing stuff like this isn't a problem. It's a process. He nodded in understanding, even though he couldn't see it, giving him time to let his nerves settle. After flipping up your pillow and getting yourself comfy, he stayed quiet. Eventually, his shoulders became less rigid. When his eyes opened, he smiled and turned his head towards you. Thank you for waiting, again, as always. He laughed shyly, his soft eyes meeting yours through the dim light.
Are you okay?
Yes, I am now that you are. I'll always wait for you, Cove. It took you long enough, but it's fine now. He nodded quietly. I nod. He let out a deep breath, relief written on his face. He shuffled closer, an inch at a time, and nuzzled his chin against the top of your head, wrapping his arms around your sides. You let him hold you, stayed like that. You grasped his shirt, you wrapped his arms around him. You let him hold you. The safety and warmth of his arms enveloped you, and you exhaled a contented sigh of your own. The room grew quiet around you. The only sounds to be heard were the faraway crash of the ocean waves and your breath mingling in the small space between you. Cove's heart was pounding, the thump of it rumbling through as he spoke again softly.
That's...
You know, I'm not scared of you, right? It's just so many other things that scare me. I'm afraid of what-if hypotheticals that aren't actually real, but I think about it anyway, and of new and nebulous concepts of what things mean that I can barely explain it even to myself.
Honey, that's called anxiety.
And me too, bitch. I'm scared of my own feelings and how much I feel them. And I'm afraid because tomorrow things will be different between us, but I'll be alone again. He held on to you tighter, his breath stuttering ever so slightly. It's normal right now to see you during the day and part ways at night. Except for special occasions. A little laugh escaped him before his tone became serious once more. It's easier to stay where I am than it is to make myself move, to not take a risk, and to not know what I might be missing, but... He hesitated and he reached up to brush a few strands of his hair from his face gently, his eyes slowly fixing on yours. I'm sorry I act so split when it comes to, romantic things. I do not want you to think you're rushing me when I know I'm giving mixed signals. It's okay, I get it. You're demisexual, so am I. And I don't want to miss out on being happy by being like this, but sometimes I still can't help it. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm glad you're never giving up on me. It means a lot. It means everything to me. You don't give up on me either. You've been there whenever I've really needed it. It's who you are and I accept it. You smiled in understanding. This one. His eyes glossed over a little as he squeezed you closer to him and smiled. His heart rate finally relaxed into a normal rhythm.
Good night.
Night. He leaned forward and kissed you tenderly, his hand gently moving to cradle the back of your head.
I love you.
What? Oh shit, has he never said that before? Oh shit, what up?
Your heart skipped a beat as Cove stared at you, his confused expression perfect mirrored of your own. And then, as if the gears had slowly turned and clicked into place in his head, his eyes widened.
Oh my god.
His mouth opened wide as he sucked in a huge breath, barely even moving a muscle. You love me? He said nothing, continuing to inhale as though he could suck them back in, completely horrified with having blurted out those words. Then, he slowly covered his mouth with his hands, holding the air in. You waited for him to say something, anything, but he only stared at you with a trembling gaze. He shut his eyes tight and mumbled something, but you couldn't hear it with his mouth covered. It's okay, Cove. His eyes burst open once more in a panic. He finally pulled his hands away from his mouth. Is it? Those feelings were held deeply in him, and to have them let them get through when he hadn't meant it was immensely distressing. You knew Cove, and were positive he was worried that it was going to ruin things between the two of you, but he didn't need it to be. Yes, it is. He gave him a soft smile and nodded at him in encouragement. He looked at you profoundly before speaking in a small voice. I'm in love with you. That's not too much? I got the achievement. Overwhelming emotions. Hey, yo! You locked eyes with him, feeling as though you could almost burst with happiness. In your heart, you knew exactly what you wanted to say. But you struggled to get the words out. I love you too. I love you. Do you really need to ask? Yes, I love you. You smiled at him, feeling the truth of those words surge through you. A relieved self escaped Cove, who tucked his head down and clutched the front of your shirt. You held him close to you as he spoke between gasping breaths. Thank God. Thank you. I love you, Cove. I'm so happy you said something. I had a feeling it would go like this. You don't have to thank me for anything. You find yourself speechless. I love you, Cove. You're the only one for me. You cried with him, you wiped his tears, you squeezed his hand, you smiled at him, you snuggled against him. Snuggles. Burying your face in his hair, you chuckled softly and inhaled his familiar, comforting scent. Cove's eyes widened on you, brilliant with fresh tears as his expression turned serious. I feel like I'd never be able to make myself say it. He laughed, and the tears fell even stronger as he shook from it. I can't believe I did it by accident. He covered his eyes with one hand. If you hadn't felt the same way, I don't know. I can't bring myself to imagine it. And I don't have to because you do. You do love me. He whispered the words to himself softly, as if he hardly dared to believe them at all. Then he closed his eyes, his hands still shaking as they moved back to take yours.
I'm so sorry.
I really am always like this. Nah, baby, it's the anxiety mood. I get ya. You leaned in to kiss him, you held him tight, you gave him a moment to himself. I'm gonna smooch him. As your lips met, he kissed you desperately, as though all he wanted was to hold on to the moment, to you. When he kissed you deeper, your hand slipped behind his neck, feeling tiny goosebumps spreading across his skin. Yui. You couldn't help thinking about how happy you were to be with him, how you were certain you wanted to spend your life with him, and you told him as much. This one. I hope we get to spend our whole lives together. Cub's expression crumbled again. He wasn't able to tamp down the newest wave of emotion. His eyes watered once more, and he took a few heavy breaths. I hope so, too. We could always be together, always. Have a place of our own. And a kid, and kids. Also pets. Also a pet. With just the two of us. Yeah, no kids. Pets. Don't you think so? He laughed brightly.
Of course.
Pets, too. You think I'd leave Hoshi with Dad? He felt warped being able to talk about this openly. He liked to imagine the life you could have together, and now you could do it with him. He rubbed at his scarred arm bashfully. I'm glad they gave us an option that we didn't have to have kids. Good, because I do not want kids. You know, I thought having to grow up for real was going to be so hard. I didn't know if I could, but you? Well, maybe it won't be that impossible.
I mean...
I better make sure it's not, huh? I'm looking forward to it. Curling himself up, he nestled in close to you, letting you wrap your arms around him and hold him tight. You're still smiling as you snuggled into him, getting as close as he could. Cocooned into his warmth, you easily grew comfortable next to him, feeling him ease into you as well. Before long, your eyes were growing heavy, and you drifted off into a restful sleep side by side. Next morning, you woke slowly from a comfortable dream. With a small stretch, you opened your eyes fully to the sun shining in through the window. Shuffling onto your side, you noticed Cove still beside you in bed, sleeping soundly. His arms continued to be draped around you loosely as he snoozed. You must have fallen asleep that way. He smiled, remembering the prior night. It had been nice to spend a night together, getting to be with him in a whole different way. You could definitely get used to it. You quietly watched him sleep, you stroked his cheek gently, you ran a hand through his hair, you kissed his forehead softly. Kiss! Being careful not to wake him, you bent over and pressed your lips against his skin. He started a little in response, a small, sleepy smile appearing on his face. Then a loud noise suddenly startled you, and you snapped toward the source of the sound. Oh no! Oh no, it's dead! Cliff? This isn't what it looks like? It was the door opening abruptly, and the frame stood Mr. Holden, smiling brightly. He hadn't seemed to have noticed you straight away. Get your butt out of bed, sport. Mom's here. Oh! All of a sudden, the two of you made eye contact, and he froze where he stood, a smile slowly slipping from his face. Well, that's not what I usually walk into. I clearly should have knocked this morning. Your mouth wordlessly fell open. Oh shit. Of course Cove would get away with sneaking into my room, and I'm the one who gets caught. Good morning, Mr. Holden. You pulled the blanket up over your head. You screamed. Oh shit! Cove immediately bolted upright, looking around in concern over your shell. Yui! You clamped your mouth shut tight as Cove looked at you, and then followed your eyelid to follow his dad, watching the two of you in alarm. Cove scrambled onto the bed in an attempt to get to his feet, pushing the covers back off of the both of you. Forgetting there was an overhanging ceiling above him, he shot upwards and hit his head on the wood. Oh no, God, this is so fucking awkward. He flopped back down onto his pillow, pressing a hand to his head and groaning loudly. You laughed at the scene, you gasped in horror. Cove! You can only stare in shock at all of this. Cove! You reached out towards him instinctively. Cove, bud, are you alright there? Mr. Holden stepped further into the room, his eyebrows furrowed in concern, and he bent down toward his son.
Yes.
Please, just go! Okay, I'll leave. Cliff held his hands in front of him in a calming gesture, even though Cove couldn't see it. He turned to make his exit, but stopped abruptly in the doorway, obviously deciding he had something more to say. I know we talked about this before, I feel like now is one of those times to mention that I was barely older than you when I found out I was going to be a daddy, so... No! No. We didn't. No, we did not. Unfortunately, but we did not do any of that. This is not what it looks like. Just if there's anything you need to say or ask about, we're not having kids. I know, I was only saying, at that age, things can move fast, and... He let out a heavy sigh, running a hand over his face before stopping himself and saying calmly, "You know what, that's fine, we'll chat about this later." Kyra's awaiting. God, fuck. With that, he stepped back out of the room, giving the two of you one last look before pulling the door shut behind him. Cove rubbed out his face before dropping his hand into his hands and mumbling between his fingers.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. You patted him on the leg. Well, that was fun. You covered your face with your hands. That was so awkward you groaned. Well, that was fun. He said nothing and you got the impression he didn't appreciate your comment. With a heavy sigh, Cove forced himself to sit up again. He frowned hard, staring over at the closed door. Sorry. I guess we can't just hide in here now. He gave you a sidelong glance, and despite his displeasure at the situation, a small smile quirked his lips.
It's nice.
It's too bad. It had been really nice. Too bad is right. I hope we get the chance to do this again some. You find yourself smiling along with him. The two of you took a minute to get upright and get yourself as ready as possible before heading out to see Kyra. Kyra was waiting patiently in the living room. She was in high spirits with her eyes set on the hallway. Her amused smile only widened when you and Cove froze. It didn't take long for the realization to sink in that the scene must have been loud enough for her to hear even from there. Oh no, she's gonna tease us too! Cove tried to look unimpressed, eyes narrowing over Kyra's smug delight, though his face was already turning red and his mom hadn't even said anything yet. He squared his shoulders, lifted his head, and strode forward.
Hey.
Hi, Mom. Hi, baby, and hello to you too, Yui. Her tone cracked into her greeting, and then she just gave in and laughed, unable to keep any of it in. Cove frowned, and at that, and his eyebrows furrowed. Sorry for the interruption. I didn't know you already had guests. His frown wallowed as he became even more embarrassed by this moment. He couldn't muster up any words to defend himself. Well, it's not like anyone's surprised by this. I'm sorry. Hi, he wants to laugh. He didn't say anything. Well, it's not like anyone's surprised by this. Kyra laughed even harder at this time. As it slowed, she brought a hand up to cover her mouth, but you could still see her shoulders shake. Cove still looked mortified, but he shot you a stern look. All you could do was smile. Cove was still unable to say anything, other than his teeth butting into the inside of his cheek. He stood there frozen. Kyra studied you both for a moment.
It's alright.
It's okay, my not-so-little mister is spreading his wings. I can't complain about that. You realized the air you were holding in your lungs, and then Kyra's gaze locked onto you. You know, you're just about to go over to see Pam and Noelle. Are you two coming? I'll go. He stretched his arms for a moment and yawned, trying to physically shake off what happened.
Sounds good.
Great.
Let's do it. It was then that you noticed Mr. Holden standing on the other side of the room. You figured he must have been trying to create some space for everyone during the last conversation. You could tell he felt a bit awkward, but he tried smiling reassuringly as he scratched the back of his neck. His attention went to Cove. Bud, do you want to get changed first? Cove looked down at his pajamas for a moment. He shook his head. No, we don't have to wait for that. Are you sure? It's only a trip across the street.
Don't worry about it.
I'm alright. Besides, Yui's going in pajamas too. Fair point. Cove then leaned in closer to you. He grumbled quietly. And your moms are going to figure out what happened anyway, so... Yeah.
Come on.
Away we go! With that decided, the four of you headed out across the street to your house. It felt strange waiting there while Mr. Holden knocked on the door.
Hello.
Hi there! Mom answered the door, and her expression brightened even more seeing Kyra there. She moved to pull Kyra into a hug when her gaze fell onto you. Yui? Hi, Mom. This isn't what it looks like. When did you get out there? Why are you still in your pajamas? Mom's eyebrows raised as she gave you a deep, examining stare. Meanwhile, you and Cove stared at a low side glance with each other. Before you could answer, more heads popped into view around the doorway. Ma, Liz, and Lee were all chuckling. To be honest, I always assumed Cove had been the one sneaking around. Oh, so she knew! She knew! Hell yeah, Ma! It was a solid theory, Lonnie. Most likely they've both been breaking and entering. I wouldn't put it past my baby. He takes after his parents.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I can't believe my Yui has been getting up to all this mischief, too. Mortified, Cove looked like he wanted to disappear, while the adults chuckled and discussed what you and him may or may not have done. Fortunately, they left the conversation there. Mom moved aside to usher the group in and guided them to the living room. Before anyone could get settled in, Mom spoke up. You're all welcome to stay for breakfast. We still have some great spices and stuff from the farmer's market.
Of course.
We'd be thrilled to host you. There were eager nods from Mr. Holden and Kyra, but Cove looked around the room filled with familiar faces before speaking up. Maybe instead of staying here, why don't we go to the beach? A scenic picnic, eh? Mr. Holden crossed his arms and contemplated that idea happily. Excited, Kyra clapped her hands together.
Yeah.
We could really make a day out of it. Might as well enjoy the ocean while we can. That sounds lovely, Cove. Everyone else put in their own agreement with Cove's suggestion. Before long, both families dispersed, getting everything ready. Sandwiches had to be made, water, sunscreen, towels, and more needed to be gathered and packed. But Steve and Cove both took some time to get dressed for the day. An hour later, both your family and Cove's were walking down the old path to the beach. The morning was already turning into a bright, beautiful day. You honestly couldn't ask for better weather for a beach trip. The moment you laid your eyes on the full view of the ocean, you stopped and stood there mesmerized. It didn't matter that you grew up there. The sight always filled you with wonder. Hey, Yui?
So?
I was thinking about calling Terry and Miranda, see if they can come too. Everyone else is pretty much already here, so would your family mind? That'd be cool, I'll ask them. You were already so excited at the prospect of seeing your friends today, that you immediately darted away in the direction of your mom's went. Behind you, you could hear the familiar sound of Cove laughing. I have a question. Would it be alright if Terry and Miranda came by? I don't see why not. Cliff, Kyra, what do you two think? The more the merrier.
Okay.
Of course, they're more welcome with me. Thanks. Delighted, and you nodded and turned on your heels. Cove was still several feet away talking to Lee and Liz, likely about the same topic. With a beaming smile, you gave him a thumbs up, and the two of them must have also approved, as Cove quickly got his phone out and started making the calls. At that, you turned your attention to helping with the picnic setup. Unexpectedly, your phone started ringing. You took it out, curious to see the caller ID. Feeling your heart jump with excitement, you answered the video call request. It was Derek. Derek! Oh my god, it's been a while! Hey, yo! Oh, he's so handsome! He's so handsome! The boy! It's our boy all grown up! Oh shit, I hope he still doesn't have feelings for me. Seriously, what's up? The voice that came through was much deeper than it had been when you first met. It had the same exact amount of enthusiasm of a kid. Have you been enjoying these crazy summer days? Yeah, I have. It's been amazing. There's been some ups and downs. It's been memorable to say the least. Would have enjoyed them more if you'd been there. It's been amazing. That's awesome. You'll have to catch me up on that. What about you? How's your summer been? You were beyond curious to know what Derek had been up to since the last time he spoke. You chuckled, noticing your invested tone. Honestly, I've just been slammed with stuff lately. College applications and scholarship inquiries. What else is new? I bet you're even more toned than the last time I saw you, you joked. Your only real struggle will be choosing which place to go. They're all to be desperate to have you. I wish you nothing but luck. This one. Totally. Your circle turned into a sigh. You could have heard his small smile when he spoke. I really hope so anyway. That would be amazing. What about your family? Are your brothers being good? My little brothers are little punks, but I guess they're doing alright. You both laughed at that. It was easy to imagine the grin on his face. Mom and Dad are fine. That's great. My moms are too. Actually, I'm out with my moms right now. Liz and Lee are here visiting too. Oh, that's fun. But if that's the deal, I'll let you get back to it. Are you sure? I don't mind. I'm sure. I'm not about to lose your number. Okay, bye. Bye, Yui. Have a heck of a day. Hanging up, the conversation left you energized and in good spirits. It was exactly what you needed to make this day even better. Aw, I miss Derek. You hurried over to your mom's and helped put out the rest of the food out. In moments, you noticed Cove at your side. So what'd they say? They're gonna come. Cool, thanks for calling them.
No problem.
I'm glad I thought of it. They'll meet us here later today. Shouldn't be too long. I can't wait. Well, on the topic of inviting people to join, you realized there was someone else you could call as well. You had gotten Baxter's number earlier that summer. You messaged him to come down to the beach. You decided not to ask. I'm gonna get him to come over. Everyone else was gonna be there, and you didn't want him to be left out. You sent him a text and hoped he showed. After that, you made sure to mention what you'd done. No one seemed to mind. Once the setup was done, everyone got comfortable and dug into the food. You couldn't remember the last time breakfast tasted this good, but you attributed to the gorgeous ocean view and soothing sea breeze. Morning swiftly gave way to the afternoon, and a very recognizable face came walking down to the shore. It was Baxter! He came! He pleasantly approached with a wave.
Hello, folks.
I appreciate the invite to the party. Of course you're welcome with us. We brought plenty of towels and food and sunscreen. Yeah, you're one of the neighbors. Kick back and relax with us.
Thank you.
Baxter's gaze moved over to you and Cove. He smiled. Yui, Cove, long time no see. Hi. You waved from where you were leisurely sat, and Cove nodded. I'm glad you decided to come. So am I. It was then that Baxter noticed the faces he didn't immediately recognize from around the neighborhood. He turned up this charm even more for the introductions.
Hmm?
Excuse me, I'm Baxter Ward. I'm sorry, we haven't met before. Well, we're not typically from around here in this area, just visiting. I'm Cove's mom. A few giggles escaped Lee as she watched Baxter carefully. When his attention turned to her now, she held out a hand.
Hi.
I'm Lee, Yui's and Liz's cousin. Baxter shook it and then took a step back. Lee's smile grew. I'll remember that. It's very nice to meet you both. Also, Lee is so fucking pretty. My god, she's adorable. After that, Baxter spent some time getting better acquainted with everyone, and Terry and Miranda arrived excitedly. The conversation shifted to what you all would do next. We could do a few rounds of volleyball, there's plenty of us now.
Is that all right?
Could I play? Of course. Miranda brightened, delighted with this plan. Maul looked around to see if there were any other takers. I don't feel like playing. I have to change, but it'd be fun to watch. I could be the rep. My eyes won't miss a thing. Volleyball's a good idea, but there should probably be something happening for those who aren't a fan. Ooh, I have some crafting supplies we could use to make jewelry. We could even use stuff we find around the beach to accentuate them. I can't fucking read.
Really?
I want to make a necklace.
That'd be great.
I'd be interested in trying to make a hand at that too.
Absolutely.
Impromptu crafting is my kind of party. I'd like to join too, please. I'll make some jewelry. Alrighty, you were imagining various designs you could make depending on what Lee lets you use. Your cousin shot you a thumbs up, clearly happy with your decision. I guess I'll try making a necklace too. Kyra got up from the towel she was sitting on. She brushed some sand off her legs and then stretched her arms over her head.
Can do.
I'm up for a few rounds. Well, since there is still a free spot, I'll throw my hat in the ring. The things I do from family.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I love that. Liz got up from where she was sitting, and you could tell by her expression that she was already determined to win. You laughed to yourself, curious on how that game would turn out. Now that plans were settled, the group temporarily split into two.
Okay.
Let me pop back to the house and get my supplies. Anything we can do while you're gone? Yes. You can start clearing out these towels for us to work at, and if you want, look around for good stuff to use.
I'm on it.
Roger that. While Lee ran back to the house, the group did that just as she suggested. By the time she returned, everyone had their craft area ready to work at. Lee sat down on one of the towels and looked up at everyone eagerly. She held up two necklace options. I hope you've all been thinking about what you wanted to make. I have for everyone a choice of either a chain or a threaded rope. How do I pick? All I do know is that I want to put some sea glass chunks on it. That is a charming idea. His gaze went back and forth between Lee's two necklaces base options. You could tell he was thinking quite hard about it. I can't decide anything for mine. No rush, I'll leave these strands here and you can decorate it however you want later. Suppose I'll use whatever I spot around the beach first. Fate can decide. I think I'll keep it classic and only worry about finding a decent shell.
Yeah.
I'm planning on doing shells too. I want to find some sea glass too. I'm gonna hunt for a handful of shells to pick from. I'm gonna look for some driftwood. I want to use some stones. I'll just wait and see. I don't have a plan. Sea glass. Great minds thinking the same. We can look together. Happy with that suggestion, you nodded. Cove crossed his arms and chewed on the inside of his cheek. You weren't the only one who noticed that. What's wrong, Cove? I'm not sure what to use. I mean, ideally, I'd want a shark tooth, but what are the chances I would even find one? Mom smiled. You both looked up at him sympathetically.
Sorry.
The rare downside of not having a shark-filled coast, that would make for a really nice necklace, though.
I know.
At Cove's pouting, Mom gave him a little bump on the shoulder with her fist. Well, don't lose all hope. You'll never know. You might end up really lucky. Cove laughed, cheered him up even though he wasn't really convinced. After that, the little crafting club busily went to work on their pieces. Whatever they decided on using was attached to the loops that were then slid onto the necklace base. Terry was immensely proud of herself when she was done. Hers was simple but gorgeous because of the striking piece of sea glass she painstakingly searched for and found. Baxter excitedly showed his finished piece off to everyone. He stayed true to his word and used various materials he found along the beach. The necklace looked like it had good weight from the clutter. He always had an eclectic style, it seemed. Cove ended up using driftwood of various lengths to design his necklace. Despite not having any shark teeth, he still looked pretty pleased with it. Mom decided on the medium-sized purple ring-top shell as the centerpiece of hers, and Lee went with the smooth Simnia shells. They both put their necklaces on as soon as after finishing them. After combing the beach several times, you found just what you were looking for. It took a bit, but you managed to make a necklace you were satisfied with. It mostly had sea glass. Your group of crafters would also cheer for the volleyball players whenever shouts can be heard coming out of the court. You really enjoyed searching the beach, trading supplies, and watching everyone make their necklaces. The crafting club was definitely a success, and you weren't the only one that had a blast. The afternoon continued to drift by, but the fun was still going strong. Occasionally, someone would head back into the houses to use the bathroom, rest away from the sun for a while, or to retrieve something that they needed, but they always came back. The beach was never empty, and there was always a new conversation to take in part of, or another game to join. At one point, Mr. Holden even broke out of his pack of cards. He roped the whole group into a few rounds of good old Go Fish. There's only one thing that could bring this beach day to an end, and that was for the day itself to end. Before anyone realized it, the sun began to set over the sea. As that happened, you're taking a break, sitting on a towel with your legs stretched out past it and your feet buried in the warm sand. Shortly, you looked up to see your moms approaching. They stopped in front of you and you smiled. Hey there, kiddo.
How are you?
I'm doing really good. How about you? We're wonderful. They both sat down, squishing you between them. Ma leaned her head against hers, and Ma started rubbing your back soothingly. Nothing more was said at first, but Ma sighed contentedly. Mom looked at you wistfully. We're both really proud of you, Yui.
True.
You grew up to be more than we ever could have hoped. Thank you. It's only thanks to you two. Your eyes start tearing up. I'm not sure I deserve any of that glowing praise. It's only thanks to you two. Bro, my moms are the best. They're so fucking awesome. Ma wrapped an arm around your middle and squeezed you tightly in a side hug. Mom continued lightly scratching your back.
Thank you.
That means a lot, but I still think you're selling yourself short. You've always been a lovely person, and I'm so thrilled to know you. Your voice faltered, and you honestly couldn't imagine your life any other way. Ma lightly brushed some of your hair back and left a small kiss there. I'm so happy I got to have both of you as my moms. After that, all three of you were sitting there getting all sentimental. I don't know how we got so lucky with you and Liz. Ma reached out in front of you for Mom's hand. She gave it to her and Ma squeezed it.
Of course.
Yui has a point. You must have done something right. You stayed there quietly and contentedly, watching the sun set with your parents for a while. Until Mr. Holden called out to you. He was still walking into your direction. We were talking and think we're going to take a walk down the shore. Any of you want to come? Automatically, you looked to your moms for what they were thinking. Mom glanced from you to Ma and smiled. That sounds good to me.
That's fantastic.
That'd be very nice. My legs need some stretching. Let's go. Thrilled, Mr. Holden threw out a thumbs up and began heading back the way he came in a light jog. Hey, don't leave us in the dust. Clef kept going forward but flipped around, walking backwards across the sand, but so he could face you again.
No worries.
We wouldn't leave without you. Alright, we'll catch up. Both of your moms held a hand out to you. Chuckling, you gave them each one, and you all strolled back to the rest of the group. When Liz was in reach, Ma used her free hand to pull her into it too. Liz shook her head, but her mouth quirked into a smirk and didn't resist. Together as a family, you followed them behind the others hand in hand. Once the sun had been long out of sight, it was finally time to pack up. Closing of the day and a never-approaching end of the summer seemed to intertwine, caused a quiet, reflective mood to blanket over the group. On the beach, Terry and Miranda took turns compressing Cove into a hug before moving on to do the same to you. You chuckled so overjoyed that you got to see them today. I'm sorry we have to go already. My parents are here. That's okay. But still, I wish we could help clear this all up. Don't worry about it. Just thanks for coming out today. It was cool having everyone here.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm super glad we came. Hopefully we can do it again sometime. Nodding, you turned your attention to Terry. She wore a large grin on her face and held a hand out for a low five. You pressed a fist into it, which made her laugh.
See you later.
Take care of yourselves, buddies. After that, they walked away, waving to you and Cove as he went down the shore. Cove waved quietly back with a small smile on his face. You waved too. Bye, have trips back. I'm happy you got to see them. Bye! You cupped your hands around your mouth to project the word louder. They both waved faster. Bye! Have a good night! Taking you by surprise, Terry jumped and twisted around. She kept up with Miranda by walking backwards. She kept the mood for your farewell light by shooting finger guns at you and Cove. Miranda bumped her with a hip. It left everyone with a laugh just before they disappeared down the bend. Yui?
Come on.
Hey Cove, could you come here? Both your parents were motioning for you. The two of you went to them. Tons of things ended up at the beach over the course of the day, so there was still much to pack up and the parents needed help. With a nod, you got to it, stuffing various things into bags and bundling them up in towels. The walk back home ended up being mostly quiet. Each person seemed to be feeling the effects of the day. A cool breeze carried you across the sand and onto the road. There was a sigh of relief from what felt like the group was as a whole when they arrived back to the neighborhood. Baxter carefully placed what he had been carrying onto the ground. Thank you so much for helping with that.
Thanks.
No, thank you for allowing me to join today. You all shared with me. Helping to carry it back is the least I can do. Ma nodded and the others started collecting their things from this pile. Baxter, meanwhile, stepped over to you and Cove. It really was a pleasure getting to know you both this summer. His head tilted towards you and he smiled warmly. Baxter offered you his hand. You used your free hand to shake his, you waved goodbye instead, you patted his shoulder, you side-hugged him, you raised your hand for a high five. Not really a side-hug him. You took a moment, but after shuffling what you were carrying, you were able to free one of your hands enough to pull Baxter into a quick hug. He genuinely laughed and looked at you fondly when you let go. I think we did end up as good friends. I really enjoyed meeting you. Good luck on your next semester at school. You didn't say anything. I think we did end up as good friends.
Glad to hear it.
I wholeheartedly agree, Huey. I enjoyed this summer vacation immensely thanks to you. Baxter turned to shake Cove's hand this time. He was a little incredulous. I can't fucking read! For a moment, but then Cove eventually shifted what he was carrying and took Baxter's hand. It wasn't long, but it was a solid handshake. Baxter was clearly pleased. I wish we had more time together, but it was still a nice ride while it lasted. We'll happily do it all over again. Bye, Baxter. Yeah, bye. Baxter nodded and walked a few steps toward his condo. He then stopped and waved.
Goodbye.
Baxter sauntered away completely and disappeared inside the condo to return to his own things, his time with you and your family and friends ending. He paused for a moment, staring at where he went. But afterwards, he looked back over at the rest of the group. Lee and Liz were just going inside your house. You couldn't spot Kyra or Mr. Holden anywhere, but the door to their house was wide open. Ma approached you with an amused look on her face. Seems like you're holding up on some Holden things. Ugh, God damn it. I thought it was Ma that was gonna be like this, not you. Surprised, you glanced down to take a quick inventory of what you were holding. Mom was right, some of it belonged to the neighbors. Would you mind dropping it off now? Can do, it's not a problem. Thank you very much. Cove took a few steps towards his house and stopped waiting for you.
Good night.
I'll see you inside, Yui. Night. You caught up to Cove, and together you went over to his house. Walking in the front door, you saw Kyra and Mr. Holden busily unpacking already. Things were scattered on counters, and they were moving around each other, putting the items away. They both lifted their heads when Cove closed the front door. Hey. It's nice seeing you again already, Yui. Her teasing tone brought a light smile to her face. You hefted the stuff in your arms a little closer. I ended up with things of yours from the beach.
Oh.
Thanks for getting that to us. You can put the, here on that coffee table. Mr. Holden pointed at the surface he was referring to, and you immediately left what didn't belong to your family there. Cole put his own things down on the floor just at his feet, wading through everything strewn about to reach his parents. Putting your family stuff on the ground for a moment, you dusted your hands off and straightened up. You needed a second of rest and a minute to resituate it all. You went over to where the others were too. Kyra opened her arms wide, wanting to hug you. You accepted. Happily, you went to her. She held on tightly. Over the years, you were able to form a good rapport with her, and you were grateful for that. You could feel in her hug how much Kyra had grown to care about you. It brought an affectionate smile to your face. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was a blast. It's not a problem. I had fun too. Kyra eventually released you, but patted the tops of your shoulders as a final gesture.
Thank you.
Every time I've gotten to come by, it's been an absolute joy. Things really couldn't have worked out better. Mr. Holland took a step closer to you. Kyra moved aside to let him say goodbye too. He grinned. Thanks for always being such a friendly neighbor. And not just right now, but for as long as I've known you. I didn't always make it easy, but you and your family are good people. I really, truly appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
In that, Mr. Holden reached over and gave you a soft pat on the top of your head. I'm really glad that you're my neighbor. You're good people too. You hugged him. Goodbye, Mr. Holden. I'm gonna hug him. Taken by surprise, you locked your arms around Mr. Holden. He let out a small squeak and went rigid. Now I see where Cove got it from. After a moment, he relaxed and began to lightly pat your back before shifting into a full hug. He held on firmly. Thank you for being a good neighbor. As you let go, he sniffled, but when he met your gaze once more, his mouth pulled into a wide, happy grin. Mr. Holden was staring at you, but his gaze seemed far away. Maybe he was looking back at who he used to be, the 8-year-old he had asked to be his son's new friend.
See you.
Bye, Yui. He smiled softly. And Cove took a step forward. He gestured to his pile of things he had been carrying into the house.
Don't worry about it.
I'll put the stuff away in a few minutes. Right, I need to go do the same with my family. I figured. Cove walked you to the door and held it open to you. Taking one last check around to make sure you had all your things to bring home, you went into the road. He leaned his body against the door frame, not following you out. So this is it, huh? Actually, that's not what I meant. His expression twisted and he shook his head a bit, like he was trying to banish the pensive thoughts.
Bye.
I'll just say bye. Bye, I'll see you soon. Your mouth pulled into a soft smile, and you weren't sure who you were trying to reassure anymore. Cove reached forward and gently cupped your face with one hand. His thumb trailed across your cheek for several heartbeats. Mesmerized by his blue eyes, you stepped forward, delighted to oblige the request he was silently asking. He met you halfway as you smiled into the kiss. It was soft with longing, and your chest ached knowing that there couldn't be anything more than this, at least for now. One of his hands grabbed onto the door handle and firmly held it. He was stopping himself from coming along with you. "Aw, baby." As you walked over to your own front door, you stopped. Turning around, you spotted Cove right where you left him. You laughed quietly to yourself. For a small pause, you both stared at each other from across the street. "Good night," you blew him a kiss, you waved, you ran back to hug him goodbye. "I'm gonna blow him a kiss." Cove reached out like he was catching it off to the side, and he curled his fist to his chest, holding the kiss close. Your lips curled into a beaming smile. Things couldn't be dragged out any longer. After one more shared smile, you opened the door and went inside, shutting it behind you. A few steps in, you saw your family gathered into the living room. They were still busy unpacking and cleaning. You added the things you brought to the pile onto the kitchen counter. Ma stood up, rubbing her eyes a bit. She yawned loudly. "I'm bushed. How about we finish the rest of the chores tomorrow?" "Yes, honestly, it's too late for this."
Thanks.
"Please and thank you." Ma put her hands on her hips and turned to assess the room. Ma was not one who liked to leave a mess about, but she sighed.
All right.
"I suppose we can make an exception to the usual rule. It has been a really long day." Liz grinned contentedly. Lee wasted no time in skipping over to you and hooked you into a side hug. "Good night. Hope you have the loveliest of dreams of you-know-who." Lee ended that sentence with a wink and a hearty laugh. She let you go. "I hope you have good dreams too." You hugged her back, you shook your head, you blushed, you laughed. Blushies. Lee's grin widened as you took the bait. Your face burned even more, realizing that. Even though your cheeks were burning, there was still a touch of an amused smile to your lips. You shook your head as Lee giggled. "I can't believe you said that. Don't worry, I'm not judging what you do in the privacy of your own mind." Lee. "Sorry, I'm done. Here's to us, Huey. Tonight, tomorrow, and forever." You smirked at that. "Yeah, family forever." "Thanks, Lee. You're really lucky." You nodded quietly. "Yeah, family forever." Lee leaned in close to whisper in your ear. You didn't fail to catch the teasing look on her face. "Exactly. There's no escape." You got a laugh out of you. You lightly pushed her shoulder. Lee stretched your arms high over her head. She yawned loudly and looked at you with tired eyes. "I think that's my cue to head to bed. Bye." "I think so too. Have fun sharing the room with Liz." She laughed at that, and Lee shuffled off towards the guest bedroom. Before you had a chance to do anything else, you could feel the top of your head being tapped. You spun around to see Liz smirking. "Nighty-night, I'm heading to bed too. It's been a long day and I have a lot to prepare for tomorrow." Exhaling, you automatically started fixing the back of your hair. When Liz didn't immediately walk away, you smiled softly at her. "Everything okay?" Her gaze moved away, and you knew she had more to say. You waited patiently for her to compose her thoughts. "It's just been a good summer. It was nice to come back home." You nodded, and Liz gave you a teasing nudge as she went by. Amused, you turned and watched her go. "Love you, baby sister." "Good night, Liz. Love you too. Bye, big sister." And gave her a hug goodnight. You smiled back. "Love you too." Liz stopped walking and stared at you for a moment. She smiled softly at you. "Aw, Liz." "Get some sleep soon. Morning will be here faster than you know it." "I will." When Liz was out of sight, Mom started up the next conversation over her shoulder. "Aren't you heading up to bed too?" "I want to relax first. I want to finish getting everything cleaned up." "I want to relax first." Desperately, you needed some time to decompress and clear your mind. You worried if you went off to bed now, you would end up staring at the ceiling all night. "Okay." Ma came over too, smiling understandingly. She pulled you into a big hug.
Love you.
"You did what you need to. I love you." When you were done hugging Mom pulled you into another hug. Her actions basically handing off to the other had you laugh jovially.
I love you.
"Good night. I love you too. You're the best parents." He didn't say anything. "Love you too." Aww. They both couldn't resist taking turns hugging you again. Your smile widened. It felt so good to be loved. "Good night, kiddo. Sleep tight." "Night, sweetie." "Night." After that, your moms headed off towards their bedroom down the hall. You were about to turn the other direction when you heard Mom's voice. "Don't let the bedbugs bite." You heard Ma chuckling as you watched them go with a smile. Time had passed, but you weren't entirely sure how much. Sighing, you sat up on the couch. It was a good rest, and all of your tired muscles felt quite relaxed. You got up, planning on going to bed, when something out the window caught your eye. "I wonder who it is." Your feet brought you right in front of the large window spanning the length of the back wall. You stared out into the hills behind your house. As if on cue, your phone came on, learning you of a new notification. It was Cove. Want to hang out on the hill tonight? Something inside you told you that this was the right kind of night to take a trip out there. You sent them back a very quick message. Yeah. Heart. Aww. You went over to the front door and stepped over to the threshold. You gave the living room one last glance over your shoulder. Then you shut the door behind you. Silently, you made your way to the poppy hill. With light steps in the dark, you walked across the hills behind your house. Up ahead at the very top, silhouetted beneath the night sky, was a very familiar figure already waiting there. Smiling, you wondered just how he always got there first. You even had the advantage of living closer. Then again, maybe it was only in your mind, but somehow Cove was instinctively linked within this place. After all these years, it'd be weird to scan his horizon and not find him there, as surreal as the shore without the sea. You took your place standing behind him on the crest of the poppy hill, looking over the ocean. Same as you'd done on countless times since he'd first arrived, when you'd found him on the very same spot. Huey. He had officially broken the silence, the spell that had held you both in place. You looked at him expectantly. There's something I've always kind of wondered about. He cocked his head, giving you a sidelong glance. What'd you think about when we met? I was just a kid you'd never seen before, bawling his eyes out on the hill next to your house. He chuckled, his eyes drifting towards the sea beyond before flicking back to you. The way his gaze pulled back that you made it clear that he was genuinely invested in the topic. Luckily for him, you remember what initially struck you in that moment. It was as if it had only happened yesterday. Well, I remember noticing your very bright green hair. Cove burst into genuine laughter at your reply. I guess that's fair. It did kind of stand out. Sighing a bit, you continued to reminisce about the first meeting. I also remember feeling bad about what was happening. I remember that too. He ran a hand through his hair, and you knew his line of questioning wasn't at an end, even before he spoke again.
I mean...
Do you remember what you thought about me, as a person? Was I annoying or mean, or... I wanted to get to know you. I didn't know what the feelings were at the right time, but I thought you were cute right away. I wanted to marry you. I just worried about you because you were sad. I don't really remember anymore. I wanted to marry you. Cove turned fully to face you, his mouth hung open. And those feelings still stand, baby!
Seriously?
You wanted to marry me? After the way I acted when we met? Yeah. He stared at you, eyes as round as the full moon, then ducked his head away. He seemed to be struggling for a way to respond.
What?
I don't even know what to say to that. You really just knew I was right for you? He took a deep breath, building up his courage for what he wanted to bring up next. I wonder if we were meant to be together. I think we were. We're the ones who decide that. I don't care. I want to be with you no matter what anything else decides. I don't know. I think we were. Cove smiled bashfully, his eyes flicking back to you under the green lashes. Cove's hand drifted to the scar on his arm, his fingers unconsciously gliding over the mark. It was much less noticeable than it had been when the neon pink cast had first come off, shrunken gradually over the years as his body healed and dwarfed into comparison to his growing body. Still, his fingers came back to it without thinking. His head drooped as he looked down to the ground. The grass ruffled gently against his feet, tousled by the breeze rolling off the sea. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. You seemed special to me as soon as I saw you. Though, admittedly, as a little kid, I definitely didn't think wedding bells were the reason for that. He raised an eyebrow at his vague words, wondering what it was that he meant. Cove lifted his head up, finally committing to meet your eyes fully once more. I remember you that day. I remember it really well. I don't think I'd ever be able to forget. I can picture the way you looked back then when I first saw you standing right here. I still know the expression on your face when you chose to sit with me in the grass. He chuckled self-derivously, interrupting his own monologue. You scared me at first. I figured I'd be alone out here until I had to face my dad again. Then suddenly another kid appeared out of nowhere. It was startling, but I got over that fast. You were a strange person in a strange place, but in that moment, you were exactly what I needed. Somebody I could talk to freely about what was happening and how it made me feel. And you listened to me and you stayed with me. He sighed and then bit his lip as he gave a small smile. I was a little bit spoiled growing up. You let him continue a little? Yeah, you were. It wasn't bad. You were dealing with a lot. A little? Your teasing rolled easily over Cove, who laughed in reply. He looked off again, seeking clarity in his thoughts in the expanse of the night sky. What I'm trying to say is, when I was younger, I viewed myself basically as the center of the universe. I didn't even imagine it wasn't like that. Things didn't simply happen. That would be weird according to my little kid brain. It made for more sense that everything in my life had a specific connection to me somehow, right? He sought affirmation in you, wavy brows raised as he tried to explain his childlike logic. So, at the time, you felt almost unreal. Like you weren't just anyone, some other kid who happened to live in that neighborhood with your own life that wasn't connected to Cove Holden. Not to me. You were there so you could find me when I was lost. I kind of expected it all to vanish like a dream when that night was over. I would wake up and everything would be the same again.
That's...
I'd be back in my bed at home, my real home, with both my parents. The future was something I couldn't picture anymore. I didn't know what school would be like when I went back, or the table where I'd eat breakfast the next morning, or anything. And if I couldn't imagine it, how could I think it was something actually happening? I couldn't grasp my new reality. It was too big for me not to hold it all at once. So I never thought I'd see you again. Then Cove beamed at you, his eyes shining bright. And I never, ever would have been able to guess that 10 years later, when I was a grown-up, the two of us would still be together. I'm so glad I met you. It's hard to believe it's been so long. Guess that makes your dreams come true? Your words couldn't expose the joy you felt. You smiled. It's hard to believe it's been so long. Yeah, but it makes sense. If time flies when you're having fun, being with you must be like launching it in a rocket. But the smile faded from his face as his eyebrows drew together. That was the worst day of my life at the time. The day my family broke apart. It was too heavy for me to think about. I felt that way for I don't know how long. He held a hand over his heart, connecting with the pain he felt as a child, and looked at you earnestly.
It's okay.
But that was never really true. Things have only gotten better with me, with Dad and Mom. It was the change we all needed. His eyes were growing misty. So when I remember that time right now, it's not the point that my life was over. It was only the moment that I met the woman I love. Oh! When I was crying to a stranger over what I thought I'd lost, I didn't have any idea that she would be the one thing in the world that I actually wouldn't be able to live without. I'm going to fucking cry. I love you. I never want to lose you. You're so wonderful. Thank you for all this. You couldn't reply to that. I love you. He took in a breath, forever amazed whenever he spoke those words.
I love you.
Then you hugged him, then you gripped his shoulders, you ruffled his hair, you kissed him, you teared up, you grinned back at him. Kiss! You leaned into the kiss, his lips soft against yours. Cove sighed contentedly. His voice was as delicate as the petals on the poppies which crowned this hill. Hey, Yui. I'm so grateful you always took care of me. You didn't even know what to say back to that. His heartfelt appreciation left you speechless. He tilted his head up, thoughts lost in the sparse clouds above. I wonder how late it is. I guess it doesn't really matter. My dad is fine with me being out whenever. You could just use your phone to check the time. You could still text your dad about what you're doing. I'm gonna message my mom's. My mom's might care, but I don't feel like I'm telling him. You want to make sure you messaged your mom about what was going on. You quietly nodded. My mom's might care, but I don't feel like telling him. I won't tell him either. Good. Are you going to lay in the grass now? Wow, how'd you know? Lucky guess, Cove. With a chuckle, Cove plopped down to the ground and laid on his back, his usual way of spending time there. You stayed standing, you sat down, you sat on Cove's chest, you also laid your back. You laid down, snuggled against him. Snuggles. You lowered yourself against Cove's side in the grass and wrapped an arm over his chest. Cove smiled at you and used his free hand to cradle your face. The both of you finally settled in to relax on the hill. It felt like just the beginning of one of your nightly outings, but then you realized the sun was peeking out over your horizon. Cove spoke up with a disbelieving tone.
Huh.
It really was late. Your neighbor wasn't a stranger to being awake at dawn, however, not like this. He was normally an early sleeper, an early riser. This unexpected sunrise practically awed him. The two of you watched on silently as the sun began to light the world. Cove then propped himself up on the backs of his arms and looked at you with a soft expression on his face. Do you want to go back home? I could carry for you if you're not too tired. I'd rather stay a little longer. You couldn't resist the yawn, but you were serious. It couldn't be time to go already. Cove chuckled affectionately and gripped you a little more.
I get it.
Okay, but it's been a long day. We've done a lot of things. Like, really a lot. It has to end sometime. I know you're right. Since when were we okay with things ending? Does it really have to end? Yeah, I don't think there's anything either of us can do about that one, but we can stay if you want to. Cove smiled brightly as with the warm new rays of the sun that were tickling your skin. In that moment, you couldn't have appreciated him being there more. You situated yourself to be more comfortable, you leaned into Cove, you kissed him. Kiss! Moved your face forward and gave Cove a small kiss. He tilted his head against yours. Good night, Cove. Good morning, Cove. Thanks, Space Cadet. You're my favorite neighbor. I just love you so much. You didn't say anything more. Thanks, Space Cadet. He gave you Ben's smile and gave his own sentiment.
Good night.
The two of you remained together on that familiar poppy hill, where you first met until the world began to fade and blur. You were falling asleep. A few more gentle words drifted you into your consciousness.
See you tomorrow.
Your eyelids dipped, but you felt good. You were safe and relaxed. Everything that had come before this had reassured you any of that. You're confident that when you open them again, things would be okay. You opened your eyes, instead of the walls to your room, you were surrounded by open sky. It was not soft pillows and sheets underneath you, but the bed of earth and grass that you'd taken last night. The day you welcomed with a shining sun, a refreshing breeze, and the chirping of birds. You cupped your face with your hands as you sat up, feeling the imprint of blades of grass leaving lines into your cheeks. Yui, hearing your name, you lowered your hands and looked around. There he was, your most influential neighbor, Cove Holden. Yo, he's so cute! Oh my god, he's so cute! My god! Oh god, I'm gonna fucking marry this man. I'm gonna marry this man. I'm sorry, Rainbow, but I'm gonna marry this man. But I'm gonna marry you too. It's okay, but I'm gonna marry him. He had made himself very comfortable, laying on his stomach with jewelry and shoes taken off and a flower in his hand. Good morning. Good morning to you too. Cove laughed, tickled at the overall sensation and simply being able to spend time like this. Told you I'd see you tomorrow. It's the exact same day, Cove. Pretty safe bet. We see each other nearly every day. Alright, good for you. I'm glad you were right, smiled at him. It's the exact same day, Cove. We were up until dawn. It doesn't make it a new day now, just because we were able to sleep later than normal. Then we disagree because, to me, it's not really the next day until I've been to bed and woken up. But fine, I'll just have to make sure I see you tomorrow again. Probably the day after that, too. That way, there's no argument. Cove turned his head up to the sky, his expression content. Looks like it's gonna be a nice day. We'll have to come up with something to do to make the most of it. He trailed out, blinking slowly in the sunset. Someday, when we're even older than we are now, I wonder what we'll end up remembering this moment for. What we will have to feel when we look back at it. Will it be the same as what we were feeling right now?
It's nice.
I can't say what the future's gonna look like again, but I think that's alright. You're way too sentimental. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have forgotten about all this. I think it'll mark another new start for me. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to finding out. Cove turned back to you, nodding in full agreement. He eyed the hill sprawling out before you, and down below, where the wild hill and nature gave way to civilization. Your home and Cove's lay down at the bottom, neatly filled among the other houses in the neighborhood. Hey Yui, I bet I can beat you in getting back to the road. You laughed, amused by the wager that reminded you of so many moments in your youth. As much as I like it here, it's okay if we leave now. We can always come back to see the poppies and the fireflies again, right? Cove met your eyes, waiting for what you were going to say in response. Right, I'd like that. It really is going to be another nice day. You're amazing. Yeah, we better do that. You're not getting out of it. We'll always be together in one way or another. I might be able to manage that. Right, I'd like that. Cove blinked slowly, his eyes still locked on you, but you still didn't see his face to know that he adored you. Aww, I love him so much. Look at his fucking blush. Aww. If there had been any room for doubt, the tender way he spoke would have filled it up. You're really irreplaceable, huh? Cove beamed at you. His expression was so unlike the one he'd worn that you first found him there, swallowed in sadness and uncertainty. Yet you couldn't help but glimpse at the boy once more underneath his bright expression and matured features.
Come on.
He offered you a hand. You accepted it, your palm fitting around his. Cove lifted himself up, pulling you along too. Our parents probably aren't going to come running for us this time. We've got to make our own call, and I say that we can't hide away forever. Poppy Hill is just one part of things. There's more out there for us than this time than this place alone. Let's enjoy it. You couldn't say whether you were the one that broke into your run, if Cove had been the one to start it, or if your feet had simultaneously made that choice for you both. The end result was the same, with the two of you dashing down the hill like children, but with the nostalgic reverie that could only come out as an adult. As the wind whipped past you, you knew that family and friends were waiting at the end of your sprint. There are more memories to make after all. Life just takes another step forward. I just got the achievement, Our Life. Aw, we did it! We beat the game!